Chapter 43:11. In the sky, Luli Empress and Han Xie's pupils trembled a few more times as fear spread in their hearts. Whoosh! As if the roof of the underground palace had been lifted, a rolling sea of blood began to flow out and drown the earth. In the rolling sea of blood, a figure with long hair fluttering in the wind slowly floated up. This person was dressed in blood red and held a blood-red sword in his hand. His entire body was filled with dense killing intent. The moment he appeared, he affected the hearts of thousands of warriors in the spirit kingdom. Lin Ling. Yes. Everyone looked up with trembling pupils. Lin Ling. Yes. Luli Empress and Han Xie also swallowed with difficulty. From Lin Ling's body, they felt a power that surpassed the power of gods. Demon Slayer. Yes. Lord Ning and Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu said at the same time. I didn't expect that the Demon Slayer sword would be taken by him. Moreover, he awakened the sword. You should know that even in the era of gods, no one could awaken the sword. Lord Ning said with surprise. He didn't know that Lin Ling had been collecting broken swords for thousands of years. It was done in a day. This guy, don't let the killing intent invade you. Yes. Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu said with some worry. Xiao, mo, ho. Yes. At this time, Lin Ling, who was above the sea of blood, had a flash in his eyes. A surge of killing intent burst out and turned into a sword that slashed towards the earth. Rumble. A huge trench was cut in the earth. Above it, a blood-red sword wave rushed towards the crowd like 10,000 horses galloping. Oh my God! Yes. Seeing the huge blood-red sword wave, everyone was so scared that their bodies trembled, and they almost forgot to run. However, before they could react, the sword slashed them in half. Their blood seemed to be sucked into the sea of blood below Lin Ling. Kill! Seeing this, Han Xie also roared angrily and activated 1,000,000,000,000 heartbeats to suppress Lin Ling. Sound waves of heartbeat surged out like ripples, but just as they were about to reach Lin Ling slashed out with his sword. A blood-red sword wave appeared and actually cut the sound waves into two. Furthermore, the sword wave did not stop and slashed towards Han Xie. Heart of God. At the critical moment, a crystal-like heart appeared in Han Xie's hand, and he slapped it hard. Rumble. A deafening sound rang out as the sword wave was blocked. However, Han Xie also spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. Looking at the crystal heart in his hand, there was a hair-sized sword wound on it. What a terrifying sword! What kind of power is this? Han Xie's heart trembled, and his gaze towards Lin Ling became even more fearful. The steps of God, and it's probably related to killing. Because killing is tyrannical, these steps of God are also the most ferocious. Not far away, Luli Empress seemed to have noticed something. However, killing is also a double-edged sword. It can kill the enemy, but it can also kill the master. Lin Ling won't be able to control this power for long. Lin Ling, we haven't seen each other for many years. Now that we meet again, are you going to destroy my spirit nation? At this moment, a huge stone statue appeared in the sky and looked down at Lin Ling majestically. He was Lord Ning. Lin Ling also raised his head slightly and looked indifferently at the godlike expert. He did not say a word. He raised the sword in his hand and looked at Lord Ning as he slashed with his sword. Soa Paku. This sword was very terrifying as it slashed out a rolling sea of blood. Because in the eyes of countless people, the sword turned into a sea of blood and rushed towards Lord Ning. Winter Plum. The huge stone statue was like a god. It stretched out its palm and looked down at the sea of blood rushing up from the ground and pressed down. The power of winter burst out and froze the sea of blood. From afar, the scene was very majestic because a huge sea of blood rushed into the sky. But now, it was completely frozen. Everything was so lifelike. What a powerful divine staircase. However, although Lord Ning easily blocked Lin Ling's sword, he also let out a dignified voice. Lin Ling, your opponent is not me, and my opponent is not you. Lord Ning looked at treasure god Nanwu Fengyu in the distance and knew that this peak god was his opponent. Of course, he didn't expect that the current spirit nation would almost be turned upside down because of Lin Ling and treasure god Nanwu Fengyu. 1,000,000 martial gods, move out. Then, Lord Ning let out a low voice as if he was giving the order of a god. As he spoke, a large number of powerful auras soared into the sky from all directions of the island. Then, rays of light formed the aura of divine soldiers and divine generals, and they rushed toward the underground palace with great momentum. 1,000,000 martial gods. These martial gods were all dragon spirits. Looking at the horizon, the sky was filled with experts like locusts. 1,000,000 martial gods are here too. Han Xie's expression changed greatly because he already knew that the spirit nation wasn't as simple as it looked. In the distant continent, there were countless experts. These experts were the group of people that the spirit nation took away when they first arrived in the void of the 9 states tens of thousands of years ago. Now that tens of thousands of years had passed, the strength of those experts had reached an unknown level. Thinking about it, the 1,000,000 martial gods were just a group of them. Lin Ling is going to fight against 1,000,000 martial gods. On the ground, the experts of the spirit nation were also trembling. One person against 1,000,000 martial gods. In the world, other than Lin Ling, who else could be so domineering? The name of Lin Ling, one of the 8 new gods of the 9 states, was now deeply engraved in their hearts. Look in all directions and chant. However, seeing the arrival of 1,000,000 martial gods, Lin Ling wasn't afraid. Instead, he stepped on the sea of blood, held his sword diagonally, and attacked. Kill! 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 Rumble! The group of martial gods closest to Lin Ling began to receive Lin Ling's Blood Sea sword. The Blood Sea was a murderous aura. Therefore, even if they unleashed their full strength, they couldn't stop the impact of the Blood Sea and were all killed. With this attack, 30,000 peak martial gods had fallen. However, this was just an appetizer before the slaughter. Next, the Blood Sea drowned the 1,000,000 martial gods and a figure began to kill wildly. This was because Lin Ling knew that before the giant ghost appeared, he couldn't retreat. He could only kill. 1,000,000 martial gods, he can kill them all. On the ground, looking at the falling corpses and the Blood Sea that was filled with murderous aura, everyone held their breaths and couldn't even speak properly. Time flew by just like that. 1,000,000 lives kept disappearing and merging into the Blood Sea. In the end, the murderous aura of the Blood Sea became 100 times stronger than before. This guy is really going to kill to stop killing. Chapter 43:12. Kill! 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 In the sky, the voices of the millions of martial gods became softer and softer. Only a devilish voice could be heard. It was Lin Ling's voice. Looking at the sky again, it had turned into a sea of blood. There was no one to be seen. The millions of martial gods had been killed without leaving a single one behind. However, the sea of blood seemed to have become denser and its flowing speed had slowed down. In the end it was completely frozen, as if a large cloud of blood was floating in the sky. His killing intent has begun to recede. Luli Empress suddenly sensed something and was familiar with the power of Lin Ling's sea of blood. It turned out that after activating the killing steps, Lin Ling had to kill madly. If he didn't kill enough, Lin Ling would be affected. If he killed to his heart's content, the killing intent would be replenished. It would no longer affect Lin Ling. Of course, after reaching perfection, the power of the sea of blood would quietly recede, allowing Lin Ling to return to being an ordinary person. This is a chance. Han Xie floated up and shouted coldly, Lin Ling, you've killed millions of martial gods. Your death is at hand. As soon as he finished speaking, he actually activated the mysterious talisman, Silent Words. A mysterious language was like a beautiful melody that floated into everyone's heart. Many of the Spirit Nation's experts felt a sense of comfort. Could it be? However, Luli Empress had guessed something. She guessed that Han Xie was activating the power at the Spirit Nation had left in Lin Ling's body to control Lin Ling. Lin Ling, be careful of that incantation. Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu had obviously sensed this and immediately shouted. Looking at Lord Ning, his face was cold throughout the entire process. Whether it was the millions of martial gods being killed or this trump card, he showed no emotion. At this moment, Lin Ling was lying on the blood sea. After hearing Han Xie's voice, he suddenly floated up strangely. Then, he floated out of the blood sea and flew towards Han Xie. Following his footsteps, the surging sea of blood in the sky also began to retreat, turning into a vortex and disappearing into the sword hilt behind Lin Ling. Lin Ling, kneel down. Lin Ling, aren't you very good at killing? Kill another one for me to see. Huh, Lin Ling, you didn't expect it, did you? One day, you would become my subordinate. As he watched Lin Ling walk towards him, Han Xie was undoubtedly excited. This was the fatal blow that he had been hiding. This trump card had been passed down to him by Lord Ning. Hence, he knew that as long as he unleashed this power, no matter how powerful Lin Ling was, he would be able to control him and become a member of the Spirit Nation. When he thought of the insufferably arrogant Lin Ling being controlled by him, the excitement in Han Xie's heart was even stronger than when he broke through to the next realm. Lin Ling did not stop walking. He slowly appeared in front of Han Xie and stared coldly at him. What are you looking at? Kneel down. Seeing this, Han Xie roared angrily, his voice filled with majesty. This also caused the Spirit Nation's experts to react. Then, they all laughed as if a heavy burden had been lifted off their shoulders. After all, based on Lin Ling's previous killing method, they would have been killed by Lin Ling very soon. Fortunately, Han Xie now had Lin Ling under his control. Once Lin Ling is under the Spirit Nation's control, it will be difficult for him to resist. Since he has killed so many people from the Spirit Nation, he is definitely a sinner of the Spirit Nation. When the time comes, even I can torture him. That's right, I want to shit on his head. Hee, just thinking about it makes me a little excited. The experts of the Spirit Kingdom heaved a sigh of relief and began to converse with smiles on their faces. However, at this moment, Lin Ling raised his sword high. The murderous aura that had yet to fade from the body of the huge sword was still terrifying. Lin Ling, what are you doing? However, this method of controlling Lin Ling seemed to have no effect. This was because Lin Ling had already ruthlessly slashed his sword down. This also made Han Xie's eyes widen. However, he didn't run away or resist. Instead, he sped up the casting of the incantations and runes. Even now, he still believed that Lord Ning had left him a trump card. Unfortunately, he didn't know that this kind of trust would bring him a fatal price. I have no idea what you're talking about. At this moment, Lin Ling spoke for the first time. His voice was extremely domineering. Boom! The sword slashed down and sliced Han Xie into two halves. When the sword landed on the crystal heart, it paused for a moment before slicing the crystal heart into two halves. Crack! A crisp sound rang out and the crystal heart shattered like glass. When he looked at Han Xie again, his originally transparent body had quietly returned to his original appearance. However, from his forehead to between his legs, a blood-red sword mark had appeared. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Why didn't it work? Could it be that Lord Ning had lied to him? Impossible, Lord Ning would never use this matter to deceive him. In the end, he could only think of one possibility. Lin Ling had escaped from the Spirit Nation's control. Damn it, I've been fooled. Han Xie let out an unwilling roar. Then, his body was forcefully torn apart. Blood and flesh rained down from the sky like rain. Naturally, he was indignant. With his strength, even if he couldn't defeat Lin Ling, he wouldn't have been killed so easily by Lin Ling. However, he firmly believed in the power that the spirit nation had left in Lin Ling's body, resulting in his current situation. His death undoubtedly affected the evil spirit in the underground palace. This caused it to be at a disadvantage in the battle for consciousness with the giant ghost. Lin Ling is out of control. In the distance, Lord Ning's eyes were filled with shock. This scene had clearly exceeded his expectations. After all, this was a hidden danger that he had left in Lin Ling's body. When Lin Ling became stronger in the future, he would use it to control Lin Ling. In the Battle of Spirit Light City, Lin Ling had disrupted the plans of the Spirit Nation's great god. At that time, the great god had said that he had to obtain Lin Ling no matter what. Therefore, he had left this trick up his sleeve. However, 100 years later, Lin Ling had disappeared and returned. The hidden danger had been removed. For deities guarding the island, kill him for me. Lord Ning finally had a murderous intent towards Lin Ling. Boom! Boom! No wonder the spirit nation was so powerful. After the fall of millions of martial gods, another powerhouse had arrived. In the east, a huge divine hound was galloping. With the sun and moon in its mouth, it let out a roar that made countless people tremble in fear. Divine spirit, divine hound. Looking to the south, there was a beast with a human body. It was covered in red scales, with fire snakes piercing its ears and fire dragons beneath its feet. This was the Southern Fire ancestral sorcerer. A giant covered in flames strolled over. Wherever it passed, a sea of fire would appear. Even the bubbles in the sky above the island were burned. The bloodline of the 12 ancestral sorcerer. Speaking of the 12 ancestral sorcerer, they were powerful because they were deities from ancient times. Although they weren't real ancestral sorcerer, they possessed the bloodline of the ancestral sorcerer. Chapter 43:13. Looking to the west, an ugly old monk floated over like a ghost. Around him, the sky was filled with earthworm-like ants, causing one's scalp to tingle. This was the insect ghost monk. This person specialized in using goo. In the 9 prefectures void, where the heroic spirits of the 10 evils of the 9 prefectures rested, the goo king's technique was passed down by him. As for the north, it had already turned into a pitch-black night. Under that quiet and strange night, an old woman holding a walking stick staggered over. Her old face was full of wrinkles, so much so that her eyes could not be seen. A ghost lantern hung from the walking stick in her left hand, and in the pitch-black darkness, there was a ghost lantern hanging from it. Under the lantern, it was like the light of a firefly. Looking at the aged right hand, there was a wooden bowl in it. The bowl was filled with liquid, and it looked very magical. Meng Pa. Legend has it that she was a terrifying old woman guarding the bridge of helplessness. The origins of these people were not to be underestimated. They were the true pillars of the spirit nation, and their origins could be traced back to millions of years ago. After experiencing the investiture of the 9 prefectures, they had all returned to their positions as gods. Right now, the 4 ghosts and deities were suppressing Lin Ling. The 4 deities guarding the island are now fighting against the new god of the 9 prefectures, Lin Ling. I wonder who will be stronger. Seeing the powerful auras coming from the 4 directions, the experts of the spirit nation all retreated far away and rushed out of the majestic ancient city. Then, they stared at the strongest battle between the 9 prefectures and the spirit nation. Moreover, regardless of whether Lin Ling died or not in this battle, his name in the spirit nation and the 9 prefectures would definitely resound for millions of years. Lin Ling is actually so strong. The gap between me and him is too big. In the crowd, Luli Empress looked at the experts coming from all directions and then at the arrogant man under the sky. She quietly clenched her fists, her eyes filled with unwillingness. Although she didn't want to admit it, she already knew that the Lin Ling she looked down on before was now above her head. During the competition for the 8 gods' heavenly palaces quota, if it wasn't for Yojin's interference, perhaps she would have been killed by Lin Ling. Li Xiaoyao, Lin Ling, no matter who you are, you've all hidden so well. When she thought of this, Luli Empress's face was filled with killing intent and jealousy. After all, she had cultivated bitterly for so many years. However, she had been surpassed by Lin Ling in a single day. How could she accept this? Therefore, Lin Ling must die today. Otherwise, if she let Lin Ling leave, then what awaited her would be Lin Ling's fatal revenge. Those 4 experts are all at the deity level. Their divine embryos and divine power are stronger than mine. If the 4 of them work together, they can definitely kill Lin Ling. Luli Empress retreated and said malevolently. Now, she wanted to see Lin Ling die before her eyes. Only then would she feel at ease. As for Lin Ling, who was in the limelight, he quietly looked at the gods coming from the 4 directions. He felt as if he had sensed the suppression of the 4 great worlds. It's time to use more strength. With a soft sigh, Lin Ling's eyes shone with determination. From the beginning, he knew that today's battle wouldn't be so simple. The spirit nation wasn't something that he could shake alone. Therefore, he had been preserving his strength. However, now that he had continuously used his trump cards, it was time for him to finally reveal his trump card. This final trump card was very strong, but it had a time limit. Therefore, he had to use it to defeat the 4 gods before it was exhausted. Lower deity. Lin Ling's soul power spread out like a tide as his eyes stared at the 4 gods. Lower deity, this was the strength of the 4 gods. In the 9 states, they were only below the 4 great deities. Although Han Xie and Luli Empress had also stepped into the ranks of lower deities and possessed divine origin, it was obvious that the 4 gods' realms were more stable and they had cultivated for a longer time. Great Buzhou Mountain Pillar. At this moment, the Western Witch ancestor took the lead. He was like a giant with his hands raised to the sky. Lava flowed from the sky and turned into a huge lava pillar in his hands. The moment the pillar appeared, the island in the west immediately turned into a world of fire. Then, he looked at Lin Ling and threw it over. Buzhou Mountain Pillar. According to legend, this sacred mountain was broken by the fire god Gonggong and the water god Jerome. It was the pillar of heaven and earth and the support of the void great Tao. In ancient times, after the collapse of Buzhou Mountain, there was the saying of Nuwa patching up the heavens. However, it was obvious that the giant wasn't holding the real Buzhou Mountain, but a wisp of Buzhou Mountain's will. However, because it came from ancient times, this wisp of will was extremely terrifying. It was mixed with the power of 3,000 Tao deities. 3,000 Tao deities. In the 9 states, there weren't many people who had more than 2,000 Tao deities, let alone 3,000. Moreover, the Buzhou Mountain Pillar carried the power of the witch ancestor and reached the power of 700,000 Tao deities. Rumble. When the Buzhou Mountain Pillar smashed towards Lin Ling, the cracked island cracked even more. In the sky, ancient red flames spread like the sunset. Although it was the most ordinary red, it was the most ancient flame of the fire god. Whoosh! When it rained down, it immediately drowned Lin Ling. After the flame of the fire god, a huge Buzhou mountain came crashing down. At this moment, no one thought that Lin Ling could still be alive. After all, Lin Ling was a new god and not a real god. This also made Nanwu Fengyu roar, Lin Ling. He immediately wanted to help Lin Ling, but he was stopped by Lord Ning. Lord Ning's expression was cold and he didn't even look at Lin Ling. He appreciated Lin Ling and didn't want Lin Ling to die here. Unfortunately, the trouble Lin Ling had caused today was too big. If he didn't kill Lin Ling, it would be difficult for him to report to Spirit Nation. Boom! However, at this moment, a ripple exploded from the rolling red flames. It was as if someone had punched the flames and used a powerful force to disperse the flames. Next, amidst the spreading flames, a young man in a grey robe shot up into the sky. He punched the sky, and with a single punch, Mount Buzhou was unable to fall. What? Seeing this shocking scene, the entire island was shocked. Under the sky, the grey-robed youth was incomparably cold. His aura could swallow mountains and rivers. After punching out, another fist followed. It was like a meteor shower that smashed at the bottom of Buzhou Mountain. With each punch, the island shook a little. Finally, with a boom, the huge Buzhou Mountain was forcefully broken. Broken. Whoosh! When Buzhou Mountain was broken, the explosive force was like the collapse of heaven and earth. It pierced through the island's bubble and caused a large amount of seawater to pour in. The island was completely destroyed. Perhaps the battle of gods was just like this. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the youth in the sky. At this moment, they were suffocating. Chapter 43:14. Trial Taker Lin Ling, I will represent the spirit kingdom and sentence you to death. In the west, the fire god ancestral sorcerer's long hair danced wildly. However, his eyes were filled with shock because Lin Ling actually broke through his Buzhou Mountain. He rushed towards Lin Ling with large strides. Although Lin Ling had some tricks up his sleeve, Lin Ling was still not a lower god. He was confident that he could kill Lin Ling. Rumble. The huge palm was like a city as it rushed towards Lin Ling. The momentum was earth-shattering. Wherever the giant fire god ancestral sorcerer passed, the houses on the ground collapsed. Under his feet, it was like a volcano erupting. You can represent the spirit kingdom. However, before the fire god ancestral sorcerer arrived, a grey robe flashed and a sword fell from the sky. What? The fire god ancestral sorcerer's face changed dramatically. It was too fast. Before he could react, a sword slashed on his cheek and cut open his cheek. The powerful force sent the giant flying. He glided on the ground and disappeared into the distance. Looking at the ground, a ravine that was thousands of miles wide appeared. It stretched to the horizon and was terrifying. Grey Robe Lin Ling. At this moment, Lord Ning also stopped fighting and looked at Lin Ling in shock. What method did Lin Ling use to increase his strength so much? He could already fight against the ancestral sorcerer. No, he should be able to suppress the ancestral sorcerer. This must be fake. Even Luli Empress's eyes were trembling. Lin Ling could still become stronger. Now, his strength was the strongest under the 4 great gods. Among the 8 new gods, who could be his opponent? Lin Ling, die. At this moment, a huge divine hound spoke in human language. It contained the sun and moon as it galloped in midair. It was like a tengu galloping towards the moon as it bit Lin Ling. This divine dog was like an ancient species. Compared to it, Lin Ling was as small as an ant. However, Lin Ling was not afraid at all. His cold eyes stared at the divine dog that was pouncing towards him, and all the strength in his body poured into his left fist. Looking at the divine dog, he punched out, pouring out all his strength. Boom! The man and the dog collided in midair, and a terrifying gust of wind poured out, blowing countless houses on the island away like straw. The island, which was already in ruins, became even more scattered. Pang pang pang. The power of 800,000 realms, the power of 2,000 Tao gods, 7 Dantians, and the power of 7 divine embryos erupted. It was like a volcano that had been sealed away for many years had finally erupted. Woo woo woo. The huge divine hound's teeth were shattered by a punch. The fist landed on its nose. It looked small, but it was as heavy as a mountain. The divine hound whimpered, its tail drooped, and tears flowed out. Then, it turned its head and wildly strung it up. However, just as the eastern divine hound retreated, a ferocious ghost monk came from the west. He silently chanted, and countless insects and ants flooded towards Lin Ling. From afar, the insects and ants were like a sea of clouds, but they were constantly squirming. It was very terrifying. And these were all goo. Compared to the goo in the land of eternal rest, they were undoubtedly thousands of times stronger. Every poisonous insect came from the divine realm and was incomparably precious. Goo, invisible and colorless, could cause people to fall into the trap when they did not react in time. Therefore, Lin Ling also felt a sense of danger coming, but he had already activated his trump card. This trump card had a limited time, and if he could not deal a heavy blow to these gods, after they joined forces, Lin Ling would definitely suffer a huge blow. Come out! Lin Ling roared to the sky. The sound made the broken bubble in the sky crack even more. In Lin Ling's grey robe, mysterious ripples began to bloom, causing the void around him to distort and become illusory. However, no one could see this scene. They only saw the squirming sea of insects drowning Lin Ling. Some of the insects and ants were as thick as a finger, while others were as big as a speck of dust. It was simply impossible to guard against them. Boom! However, at this moment, there was an explosion in the sea of insects, and light bloomed. Then, the pitch-black sea of insects shot out light like sea urchins, and there were more and more of them. In the end, a terrible burst of divine power burst out and washed away all the goo. Looking carefully, one could see the grey-robed Lin Ling standing in midair. A large number of illusions appeared around him. There was a white Luai's god, a golden king man, a green Vajra, a Buddha dragon and a wind dragon, a boundless wonton above his head, and countless evil spirits and jellyfish behind him. The 7 divine embryos were all displayed. Buzz! Buzz! Strange sounds rang in the sky above Lin Ling. It was as if the saints were singing, as if the gods were praying for blessings. He actually activated all the divine embryos and formed the scene of the gods descending. Lord Ning and treasure god Nanhua Fengyu were still fighting, but it was clear that their gazes were on Lin Ling. Even treasure god Nanhua Fengyu, an old man who was very familiar with Lin Ling, was so shocked that he couldn't close his mouth. It was as if they were looking at a dazzling star that appeared like a bolt of lightning and descended upon the spirit nation and the 9 provinces. This was because this was the first time they saw the descent of the 7 divine embryos. Even in the era of the gods, this was unprecedented. Poof! In the west, the ferocious old monk's pupils trembled. Then, he spat out a mouthful of blood, intimidated by Lin Ling's divine might. He didn't return to divinity, but he has the light of the gods. This Lin Ling is too strong. He also spoke in a solemn voice. This was because although Lin Ling seemed to be a martial god, his world essence was so terrifying that it wasn't much weaker than a god's. In addition to his physical body and powerful divine embryos, he could now truly become a god. Grey-robed Lin Ling, I'm calling you. Do you dare answer? When the old monk was injured, an old voice suddenly rang out. It wasn't loud, but it was like the cry of a nighthawk in the night, making one's scalp tingle. The sky in the north was eerily silent. A lantern slowly floated over. At a closer look, an old woman was staggering over with a walking stick. She was holding a wooden bowl, and her hands were trembling as if she would die at any moment. This was Mengpe, who guarded the northern island. Grey-robed Lin Ling, I'm calling you. Do you dare answer? The old woman looked at Lin Ling with lifeless eyes and spoke sharply again. Lin Ling, who was among the 7 divine embryos, also looked indifferently at the old woman. He sensed a strange power spreading from the old woman's body. It was the steps of the gods. However, this steps of the gods was very strange. It didn't seem to be an attack type. Instead, it was like Lin Ling's steps of wisdom, a soul-type sealing type. Now, Lin Ling sensed that the strange power was spreading all around. It was formless and colorless, as if it was going to attack at any moment. Why wouldn't I dare? Lin Ling raised his head and said proudly. He knew that even if he didn't answer, the next attack would come. Chapter 43:15. That's the datura flower. Could it be? The spectators in the distance were shocked. An old man murmured, that should be the bridge of helplessness. Crossing the bridge meant that one was dead and had to be reincarnated. Drinking Meng Po's soup meant that one had forgotten everything in this world. The endless night was like a tide that spread to the sky above Lin Ling. When one looked at Lin Ling again, he was already in front of the bridge of helplessness. An old woman handed a wooden bowl to Lin Ling with a smile. Meanwhile, Lin Ling's eyes were blank. After entering the bridge, he seemed to have forgotten everything and who he was. He only listened to Meng Po. At this moment, everyone became nervous. Was the new god Lin Ling going to be defeated? And that Meng Po's methods were too strange, it was simply impossible to guard against. Because, against Meng Po's bridge of helplessness, it didn't matter how strong one was. All methods would be suppressed. Steps of the god. Nanwu Fengyu's eyes narrowed. He was shocked at the power of the spirit kingdom because he knew that the four gods were only a part of the kingdom's strength. In fact, the spirit kingdom was already stronger than the void of the 9 continents. There were even more people in the void of the 9 continents with many cultivators with potential. It was just that they hadn't matured yet. Your power has weakened, you are worried about Lin Ling. At this time, Sir Ning's voice came, Treasure God, you came with Lin Ling today, do you think you can ruin my plan? Back then, you obtained her body and I obtained her heart. You lost to me, and today, you still lost to me. After Lin Ling's death, everything you have done will be like a dream. You can't win against me. You will never win against me because she loves me. Nanwu Fengyu's eyes narrowed and his body inexplicably trembled. In his mind, he thought of that woman. She was also the wife of Nanwu Fengyu. However, he also knew that before marrying him, his wife was deeply in love with Sir Ning. However, Sir Ning was ambitious and only cared about his great cause. Nanwu Fengyu didn't care because he loved his wife. However, during the Battle of the Gods, his wife found out that Lord Ning was in danger, so she personally went to help. In the end, she died in the Battle of the Gods. When treasure god Nanwu Fengyu rushed over, he saw his wife in Sir Ning's arms. At that moment, he felt as if the world was collapsing, as if there was no love left in the world. He didn't hate his wife because he knew that his wife had always loved Lord Ning. It was just that he thought he could use time to change his wife's mind. Therefore, he hated Minister Ning. Treasure God, you lost completely, ha ha ha. Lord Ning also laughed when he saw treasure god Nanwu Fengyu's angry appearance. His laughter contained a trace of madness. Because in his heart, there was still something he hadn't said. Back then, the person who loved him the most had told him before she died that the reason she helped him was to end this grudge. She also said that the person she loved now was treasure god Nanwu Fengyu. He had never said this to treasure god Nanwu Fengyu because he also hated treasure god Nanwu Fengyu for stealing the person he loved the most. Treasure god, I know you hate me and have always wanted to mess up my plans, but let me tell you, Spirit Country's footsteps will sweep through the entire 9 provinces. You have lost. Lord Ning's eyes were red as he shouted. He waved his hand with a tyrannical power, causing the sky to explode and the sea to flow backwards. You gambled everything on Lin Ling, right? Now, you can watch as Lin Ling dies. Once Lin Ling dies, it means that you will never have her and will forever lose to me. Rumble. Under Lord Ning's attack, the island was on the verge of collapse. Everyone looked over. They didn't expect Lord Ning to have such a grudge with that old man. Meanwhile, treasure god Nanwu Fengyu was trembling. Minister Ning's words made him remember the scene back then. The person he loved the most was held by Lord Ning, not him. Suddenly, Treasure God Nanwa Fenyu's eyes narrowed as if he had thought of something. He said word by word, "I have not lost. The heavens have not abandoned me and the earth has not abandoned me. She must love me because Lin Ling will not die. This is a message she asked the heavens to send me." What? Lord Ning's eyes narrowed. Ha ha ha. However, Treasure God Nanwa Fenyu didn't say anything and instead laughed. This laugh seemed to have removed the fetters of countless years. He finally realized that Lin Ling had a soul that surpassed the soul of a god. Not long ago, in the wasteland, it was Lin Ling who used his soul force to open the path to the 8th level. This also meant that Meng Po's steps of God could not affect Lin Ling at all. This also meant that the heavens were telling him that his wife must love him. Seeing Treasure God Nanwa Fenyu laughing, Lord Ning was furious and his eyes subconsciously looked to the north. North, the bridge of helplessness. Lin Ling held Meng Po's bowl and placed it in his mouth. However, at this time, his eyes revealed a sharp light and a terrifying soul force suppressed. Meng Po, you are already old. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Drink this bowl of Meng Po's soup and the grudges of the mortal world will be forgotten. Lin Ling's voice carried a magical power as he handed over Meng Po's bowl. Meng Po's eyes narrowed at first, but under Lin Ling's voice, her eyes became vacant. At this moment, she was like a person lost in the world, looking for the end of the world to return home. She picked up Meng Po's bowl with her aged hand and drank it gently. Boom! This scene shocked the spirit nation. Lord Ning's face trembled and his eyes narrowed. A murderous aura erupted in his heart like a volcano. Did he lose? Did he lose? Or did Treasure God Nanwa Fenyu already know that the woman loved Treasure God Nanwa Fenyu the most? You lied to me. At this time, Meng Po, who drank Meng Po's soup, also reacted. She stared at Lin Ling with eyes full of anger. If I drink Meng Po's soup, my life will end here. The people I love, the people who love me, they will disappear from my world forever. However, Lin Ling looked at him coldly and then let out a loud laugh. Unfortunately, not to mention Meng Po, even if the god of the underworld or the god of creation were here, they can't change me. I, Lin Ling, will not enter the 6th Tao, the underworld, or the mortal world. I am me and no one can bind me. Boom! Chapter 43:16. Rumble. Following Lin Ling's fist, the dark world in the north dispersed. A ray of light shone down from the sky as if it represented Lin Ling's heaven-defying heart. Meng Po was being stepped on by Lin Ling at this moment. She was being punched and kicked by Lin Ling, causing her to cry out in pain. It was as if Lin Ling was wreaking havoc in the underworld and destroying the heavenly Tao. A great calamity, a great calamity, a great calamity. In the distance, the experts of the spirit kingdom all had pale faces as they muttered this sentence. Lin Ling was definitely a great calamity for the spirit kingdom. Huh, what a great line. I want the heavens to no longer cover my eyes, I want this earth to no longer bury my heart, I want all living beings to understand my will, I want all Buddhas to vanish like smoke. Lin Ling, Quang Ba, Grandpa Treasure God will accompany you. Looking at Treasure God Nanwa Fenyu, a heroic voice soared into the sky. This old man's aura suddenly increased as he borrowed the reverse flow of the sea to form a world of wind and rain, destroying the entire island. Lin Ling. Lord Ning also let out a ferocious roar. There was only one name in his mind, Lin Ling. 100 years ago in Spirit Light City, Lin Ling had wreaked havoc there. Today, in the 8th level of the 8 gods' heavenly palace, Lin Ling had once again wreaked havoc in the spirit kingdom. Lin Ling, could it be that he was the nemesis of the spirit kingdom, the nemesis of the world's will? Bang! 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 Endless sea water poured down from the exploded island. Outside of the island, a large number of blue giants quietly appeared. They were like heavenly gods and heavenly generals, casting their gazes towards the island. As long as the island was completely submerged, then they would attack and slaughter everyone on the island. Run! The sea water was like a heavenly river crashing down. The people of the spirit kingdom panicked and fled in all directions. They all knew that today, the spirit kingdom had been completely destroyed by Lin Ling alone. Lin Ling. At this moment, below the shattered island, a ferocious aura shot up into the sky. Then, a 300-meter-tall giant appeared. It was gray in color and gray fog constantly gushed out from its body. It had sharp teeth and claws, just like a yiksha from the underworld. However, it was not a yiksha because it was an evil spirit. Bang bang bang. It shot toward Lin Ling, killing countless experts along the way. Finally, it arrived in front of Lin Ling and grabbed Lin Ling. Giant ghost. However, Lin Ling had already sensed who it was. It was just that the palm-sized giant ghost had now become a giant. Ha ha ha. After the transformation, the giant ghost seemed to be even bolder and more domineering than before. It laughed loudly and said to Lin Ling, "There's no time to lose. Let's leave this place immediately. Those blue giants are eyeing the island covetously. Moreover, I've already obtained the records of the 8 gods. Giant ghost, I've finally waited for you to come out. If you didn't come out, I would have been torn apart alive by the experts of the spirit kingdom." Hearing this, Lin Ling smiled as if a burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Previously, he had used all of his soul force to confuse Mengpa. This had caused the 3rd stage of the innate talent fusion to fade away. At that time, if an expert had come, they could have easily killed him. After all, Lin Ling had been fighting for a long time and had killed more than 1,000,000 experts. Lin Ling, you guys leave first. I'll find you in the future. When Nanwu Fengyu saw that Lin Ling was fine, he smiled and said, "This time, I've fought alongside you and destroyed the spirit kingdom. This is the fortune of 3 lifetimes." Lin Ling sat on the giant ghost's shoulder. He was so tired that he could not speak. He could only give Nanwu Fengyu a thumbs up and smile. To the underground palace. The giant ghost carried Lin Ling and flew towards the broken underground palace. Although it had been fighting with evil ghost for the 8 gods' heavenly palace, it had also been paying attention to Lin Ling's battle. Thus, when Lin Ling rushed into the island, it had also noticed. It also knew that God Emperor Zhang Gang was under the island. Walala. At this moment, the island was flooded with seawater. Whirlpools appeared everywhere and countless experts died within. In the sky, an arm formed from seawater was like fishing for fish. It scooped up the martial artists in the sea, and after it caught them, the endless seawater pressed down on them, forcefully squeezing them dry. They turned into blood. Rumble rumble rumble. As for the martial artists that had not died, they could not control their bodies and were sucked in by the endless whirlpools. When the giant ghost brought Lin Ling into the underground palace, there were swirling whirlpools. These whirlpools seemed to be suppressing the water of the entire sea. They were extremely domineering, and even the physical strength of 500,000 worlds could not resist them. Hurry! Sensing this, the giant ghost's speed increased by a fraction. Giant ghost, save me, save me. In the broken ruins not far away, the whirlpool was tumbling, and a weak voice could be heard. Upon closer inspection, it was a palm-sized giant ghost, and it was the evil ghost. However, the evil ghost was a little dispirited. It was obvious that it had suffered heavy injuries when it fought with the giant ghost for the record of the 8 gods. Evil ghost, you'd better follow me obediently. But at this moment, an arm suddenly stretched out from the whirlpool. It was a transparent arm, and it suddenly grabbed the evil ghost and swallowed it. This scene was very strange. If that person did not make a sound, they would not have noticed it at all. This also shocked the giant ghost and Lin Ling. However, the whirlpools around them had already arrived, so they could not care less and madly rushed into the underground. Who is it? The giant ghost continued to shatter the surrounding rocks as it spoke in shock. It's Han Xie. Lin Ling's eyes were cold as he said indifferently, that guy actually did not die, and it seems like he took advantage of the evil ghost's weakness to swallow it. Han Xie. Hearing this, the giant ghost could not help but shudder because he also knew that the evil ghost was indeed seriously injured and could be annihilated at any time. However, he did not expect that at this critical moment, as the evil ghost's partner, Han Xie, not only did he not help, he even hit the evil ghost when it was down. Is this the greed of human nature? The 8 gods practice divine arts and question the human world. It seems that there is a reason behind it. The giant ghost muttered to himself, but when he saw Lin Ling on his shoulder, he smiled instead, and the gloomy thoughts from before disappeared with the wind. This was because his partner, Lin Ling, would not abandon him, and this was his honor. Previously, if Lin Ling had not fought for him and bought time for him, he might not have been able to successfully obtain the will of the 8 gods. Lin Ling's battle was also a fight to the death. How could such a person not be trustworthy? This also showed that he was luckier than the evil ghost because he knew Lin Ling and not Han Xie. Boom! At this moment, there was a roar in front of them. The giant ghost finally brought Lin Ling back to the previous void. When Emperor God Zhang Gang saw Lin Ling and the giant ghost, he immediately smiled. Chapter 43:17. Lin Ling, don't bother about me. Leave immediately. Emperor God Zhang Gang said immediately. However, Lin Ling shook his head and continued to examine the white chain. His eyes gradually became serious. Although his current level of spirit formation was very high, he could tell that the chain was not something that a mere spirit formation master could deal with. There was also the power of the spirit nation within it. It needed the power of the spirit nation. It had to be solved. Lin Ling obviously didn't have the power of the spirit kingdom. Lin Ling, leave quickly. There's more and more seawater. Seeing Lin Ling shake his head, God Emperor Zhang Gang seemed to have realized something. The little skeleton beside him also looked at Lin Ling. Although he didn't say anything, he signaled Lin Ling to leave. Giant ghost, do you have a way to bring the pillar away? Suddenly, Lin Ling's gaze fell on the pillar in the void. Since he couldn't get rid of the chain, he might as well bring the person away with the chain. Let me try. Giant ghost nodded. He thought of something and immediately said, Lin Ling, wait for me. After saying that, he rushed towards the big hole in the sky and disappeared into the void. Lin Ling was confused. However, just as he was worried, there was a deafening roar above his head. This caused a large amount of seawater to enter the void. The void looked as though it was about to collapse. Giant ghost, if you don't come back, we will be torn apart by the huge whirlpool. Seeing that, Lin Ling was even more worried. The seawater wasn't ordinary seawater. It was the entire ocean of the 8th level. Even a god wouldn't dare to go against the might of the ocean. Lin Ling, leave quickly. Emperor God Zhang Gang couldn't help but say again. Ka ka ka. The little skeleton also blinked its skull and looked at Lin Ling with eager eyes. However, Lin Ling still said firmly, Emperor God Zhang Gang, back then in the starry sky forest, you helped me. Today, I must bring you away. If I abandon you and leave, I will never be able to live in peace. But God Emperor Zhan Steel wanted to say something but hesitated. Lin Ling ignored him for the time being. His eyes were fixed on the sky. The rumbling sound in the sky gradually subsided. Then, a figure rushed out of the water. With a splash, the giant ghost appeared. Giant ghost. Seeing this, Lin Ling finally let out a sigh of relief. He was very tired now. If something happened to the giant ghost, he wouldn't be able to help. However, the giant ghost that had returned was clearly different. This was because it was carrying a massive stone tablet on its shoulder. It was the record of the 8 gods. Lin Ling, this record of the 8 gods has the power of the void. Perhaps it can destroy that pillar. Without waiting for Lin Ling to say anything, he hugged the stone tablet and smashed it towards the pillar behind God Emperor Zhang. Rumble. With every smash, the void trembled a little. Ah! God Emperor Zhang's strength was sealed. However, he was still a powerful god. At this moment, he used all his strength and wanted to pull out the pillar behind him. The pillar was stuck in the void. It was very mysterious. Under the combined strength of the two, cracks appeared in the void below the pillar. Hurry up! Lin Ling, on the other hand, looked at the seawater that kept pouring down and became more and more uneasy. He didn't know how the island was now. However, he had a feeling that it had been completely destroyed. He would never have thought that because of his battle, the entire island would be destroyed. After this, the spirit nation would put out a bounty on his head. Hurry up! There seems to be a powerful existence in the sea. Lin Ling's soul strength recovered quickly. He could already sense the changes above him. He even sensed that there were many blue giants wreaking havoc on the island. Boom! At this moment, an arm stretched out from the hole in the void. It seemed to be fishing for something. Seeing this, Lin Ling's face changed. It was indeed a blue giant. Bang! Almost at the same time, the pillar behind God Emperor Zhang was finally pulled out. After pulling out the pillar, God Emperor Zhang's strength recovered rapidly. Although the chain still trapped him, it only brought him some inconvenience. Gang! He roared and his fist turned platinum. Then, he looked at the void below him and smashed it. The little skeleton had also transformed into a skeleton king and was also smashing into the void. Crack, crack, crack. Cracks appeared in the void like glass. However, at this moment, there were more and more blue arms in the sky. They were crazily fishing for something. Lin Ling was well aware of the strength of these blue giants. Even treasure god Nanwu Fengyu was powerless against them, so even if God Emperor Zhang was here, it would still be an arduous and unrewarding task. Let me help you. Lin Ling's body recovered a part of its strength. He held tyrannical song in his hand and smashed it into the void below him. This smash was like the straw that broke the camel's back. Space shattered and revealed a large hole, and the raging seawater surged into the hole. The speed of its impact was so strong that even an ordinary martial god would be forcefully torn apart. A huge whirlpool appeared and the seawater sucked Lin Ling and the others downwards. Just as they disappeared, a few huge arms came over. However, there was nothing. If Lin Ling and the others were a step later, besides God Emperor Zhang, everyone would have died there. Rumble. In the whirlpool, even someone as strong as God Emperor Zhang couldn't change anything. He could only go with the flow. Lin Ling could only hear a deafening sound. His body felt as though it was being torn apart and he gradually fainted. After an unknown period of time, there was the sound of water ripples. The gentle seawater was like a woman's hand, gently caressing Lin Ling's face. Lin Ling slowly opened his eyes. Where is this? Lin Ling woke up and his face changed. He looked around and immediately realized that he was in a cave. However, there was seawater all around and seaweed was swaying not far away. At the bottom of the sea. A guess immediately arose in Lin Ling's mind. Lower your voice. Just then, two figures walked into the cave. It was God Emperor Zhang and the giant ghost. They looked cautious. Seeing this, Lin Ling quickly held his breath and suppressed his jia qi. His body was like a dead object. God Emperor Zhang sensed the changes outside the cave. After a while, he finally let out a sigh of relief. They finally left. Then, he and the giant ghost looked at Lin Ling and smiled. You have been unconscious for a year. A year. Hearing this, Lin Ling was shocked. He sensed his body and realized that he had unknowingly reached the peak of martial god realm. The Jie Qi in his body was rolling and it was 30% stronger than before. Chapter 43:18. Lin Ling was shocked. However, he couldn't be bothered to check the change in power. Instead, he looked at Emperor God Zhang and the others. After all, he saw that Emperor God Zhang and the others were cautious. It meant that there was definitely danger outside. A year ago, we were swept here by the whirlpool. This seems to be the lair of the blue giants. Looking at Lin Ling's gaze, Emperor God Zhan Steel said bitterly. Most importantly, these blue giants seem to be looking for us. The giant ghost floated to Lin Ling and turned into the size of a fist as he spoke helplessly. Seems like there's trouble. Lin Ling frowned. He knew the strength of Emperor God Zhan Steel and the giant ghost. If they had the chance, they would have left this place long ago. However, they were trapped here for a year. This meant that the bottom of the sea was filled with blue giants. What about Spirit Nation? Shaking his head, Lin Ling asked again. In this year, a large number of experts from Spirit Nation were swept into the bottom of the sea and died in the hands of the blue giants. This time, Spirit Nation's vitality was greatly damaged. However, half a year ago, Spirit Nation's great god came and saved the remaining people with supreme divine light. He then took them away. Emperor God Zhan Steel said. Oh right, among those who were taken away, I saw Luli Empress and Han Xie. They didn't die. The giant ghost said to Lin Ling, Spirit Nation's great god is indeed powerful. He isn't afraid of the blue giants. Lin Ling mumbled to himself. He remembered the man with the strange smile he saw back then. Then, he asked, have you seen Grandpa Treasure God? That god fought with Minister Ning. The battle was interrupted by the blue giants. The two of them are missing. They either died in the hands of the blue giants or escaped. Emperor God Zhan Steel said immediately. His words made Lin Ling worried. However, he couldn't help much now. Hence, he could only pray that Treasure God Grandpa was safe. Then, the three of them fell silent. Even if they were as powerful as gods, they felt as weak as ants in the 8th level of 8 gods Heaven Palace. The 8 gods Celestial Palace clearly hid the secrets of the era of the gods. Even in the era of the gods, it was no small matter. While they were silent, a sound came from outside. It was as if a blue giant had floated past, scaring Lin Ling and the others so much that they didn't even dare to breathe loudly. Fortunately, the bottom of the sea was vast, and there were many seaweeds and caves. Therefore, the giants did not notice Lin Ling and the others. After sensing that the blue giants had left, Lin Ling said softly, do you think these blue giants are looking for us? Otherwise, why would it not disperse for an entire year? That's possible. After all, the bottom of the sea is so big, and there are so many people who fell from the island. Why are they wandering around nearby instead of searching elsewhere? Hearing that, Emperor God Zhang nodded. We can't go on like this. We can't be trapped here forever. Why don't we find a chance to escape? Lin Ling had an ominous premonition. He felt that something big must have happened in the void of the 9 continents, so he wanted to rush back immediately. These blue giants are walking back and forth, but there is a pattern to them. We can give it a try. Emperor God Zhang also agreed with Lin Ling's idea. The three of them waited for a moment. Finally, at a certain moment, they all burst out with speed and rushed out of the cave. Over here. Emperor God Zhang let out a low voice. His body split the seawater as he shot towards the east. Lin Ling also activated his third stage talent fusion. 15 world speed burst out as he followed Emperor God Zhang Gang with all his might. Looking back, the giant ghost had already transformed into the size of a human. Did it also burst out with speed? Splitting the water. The three of them were very fast. Like 3 white lines, they disappeared in the blink of an eye. Sensing that there was nothing strange in the surroundings, Lin Ling and Emperor God Zhang Gang were delighted. At this speed, they would be able to escape from the blue giant's encirclement in less than 5 minutes. But at this moment, there was a change in the water. The speed of the water suddenly increased. Then, behind the giant ghost, a huge blue palm grabbed the giant ghost's right leg. Giant ghost. This change was too sudden. Even though Lin Ling's soul power had locked onto the surroundings, he couldn't sense it at all. Lin Ling, Emperor God Zhang Gang, leave quickly. Don't bother about me. After the giant ghost was caught, it kept struggling but it couldn't break free from the arm's restraint. Hence, it didn't want to be a burden to Lin Ling and Emperor God Zhang Gang. Bullshit. How could Lin Ling abandon the giant ghost? He stopped and the tyrannical song sword appeared in his hand. He looked behind the giant ghost and slashed. Lin Ling. Seeing Lin Ling stop, Emperor God Zhang Gang sighed. In the end, he decided to help. However, he knew that if Lin Ling stopped, he would most likely be surrounded by the blue giants and perish there. However, Lin Ling and the giant ghost had saved his life. How could he not help? Caw caw caw. The little skeleton beside him also turned into a golden skeleton king. It held a huge leg bone and smashed it behind the giant ghost. Steel. God Emperor Zhang Gang roared and punched out with his fist. The god's stairs revolved around his fist and formed a grayish-brown energy. It caused the sea to turn upside down and a vacuum zone appeared. Rumble. The three of them weren't weak. When they attacked together, their attack power was terrifying. Even a god would have to avoid it. When it landed behind the giant ghost, it finally forced the giant hidden in the sea to reveal himself. Furthermore, the giant's body was continuously smashed into pieces. However, the blue giant was also very strong. Its broken body was recovering with the help of the water. No wonder treasure god Nanwu Fengyu couldn't do anything to it. It was indeed terrifying. Grand Cardinal Brahma punishment. Lin Ling knew that if the blue giant recovered, their previous attacks would be wasted. Hence, he also used the Stairs of Wisdom. The moment the Stairs of God appeared, it immediately sealed the blue giant and prevented it from recovering its injured body. On the side, Emperor God Zhang Gang was shocked. Lin Ling actually knew the Stairs of God. Looking at its level, it wasn't weak at all. He knew very well that if Lin Ling's Stairs of God was an attack type, it would be able to kill the blue giant in one move. However, although the blue giant wasn't destroyed, it couldn't recover and looked a little weak. Die. Lin Ling seized the opportunity and unleashed his full strength, slashing at the giant with his sword. Emperor God Zhang Gang and Skeleton King naturally knew that they couldn't miss this opportunity. Hence, they attacked the giant as well. Boom! With an explosive sound, the gigantic blue giant was forcibly blasted apart, causing a terrifying whirlpool to appear in the sea. Whoosh! At this moment, the giant ghost broke free and immediately shot towards Lin Ling. Lin Ling was delighted. He didn't expect the three of them to be so terrifying. They even killed the blue giant. One had to know that this was something that even Treasure God Grandpa couldn't do. Chapter 43:19. Too slow, we've been surrounded. Just then, Emperor God Zhang Gang said solemnly. A huge steel fortress appeared around him and he seemed to have pushed his fighting strength to the limit. Of course, there was still a pillar behind him and the chains tied him to the pillar. Therefore, his strength was still suppressed by at least 30%. Hearing Emperor God Zhang Gang's words, Lin Ling looked around. There was only a rumbling whirlpool and it was blue in color. There didn't seem to be anything strange. However, when he looked carefully, he realized that there were huge silhouettes in the blue sea. There were many of them and they surrounded the surroundings tightly. It was those blue giants. Moreover, there was more than one of these blue giants. This time, it could be said that they were doomed. Boom boom boom. Those blue giants that were hidden kept getting closer to Lin Ling and the others. Their silhouettes became clearer and clearer. They were huge and they were like ancient trees surrounding Lin Ling and the others. At the center, Lin Ling and the others immediately felt a huge pressure that made them feel suffocated. After all, no matter what, these blue giants were stronger than the treasure god Nanwufenyu. With so many of them, even the thunder god would turn pale if he was here. Looks like we're going to die here. Lin Ling laughed bitterly. He knew that the three of them were no match for these blue giants. Yes, I didn't expect to die in the eight-god celestial palace after escaping the spirit nation. Sigh, I heard that even a higher god wouldn't dare to barge into the eight-god celestial palace. Now that I've seen it, it's not an undeserved reputation. No wonder no one dared to barge into the eight-god celestial palace in the era of gods. Emperor God Zhang Gang sighed. He stretched out his steel arm and patted Skeleton King's head. Buddy, I didn't expect that after escaping the war of gods and waking up not long ago, we're going to die here. Wait. However, at this moment, a voice suddenly sounded out. This voice reverberated through the depths of the sea, giving off a dignified feeling. The blue giants that were walking forward immediately stopped. Then, the blue giants separated, and a blue giant that was hundreds of meters tall and held a blue trident in his hand strolled in. This giant was roughly the same as the other giants, but it was slightly larger and had a pitchfork in its hand. Tell me what you know about the eight gods' notes and I'll let you leave. The giant's transparent face looked at Lin Ling and the other two and said in a low voice. Records of the eight gods. Hearing this, Lin Ling's eyes flickered. These blue giants actually wanted to know about the records of the eight gods. This is too strange. I'll give you 3 breaths to consider. The Sea Fork Giant said again. Emperor God Zhang Gang and Giant Ghost immediately looked at Lin Ling. They wanted to see what choice Lin Ling would make. However, Lin Ling's eyes continued to flicker. He didn't know why, but he had a feeling that the secret of the eight gods' diary couldn't be revealed so easily. 3. The Sea Fork Giant's voice sounded again as he looked at Lin Ling. He could see that among the 3, the gray-robed man had the most authority. I'm sorry, I can only tell your master about the records of the eight gods. At this moment, Lin Ling also raised his head and said calmly. I'm their master. You can tell me. The giant's voice turned cold. Is that so? Why do I feel that your status isn't very high? So, let the Lord above you come. This way, I'll definitely tell you about the records of the eight gods. However, Lin Ling was still stubborn. He was determined not to say anything. Whoosh! The giant's huge body shook and the huge blue trident in his hand shot towards Lin Ling. The power was like the power of the entire sea. Lin Ling. Before the Sea Fork Giant Ghost and Emperor God Zhang Gang lost their balance from the impact. Therefore, they immediately shouted in worry. However, Lin Ling's expression didn't change. His eyes focused on the incoming Sea Fork Giant Ghost. He was also gambling. He had a feeling that if he were to reveal the eight gods' diary, the 3 of them would die here the very next moment. Therefore, only by meeting the master of the blue giant could he reveal the records of the eight gods as an exchange. Rumble. The Sea Fork Giant Ghost looked huge, but it was as sharp as a blade. It was less than a meter away from Lin Ling. However, it still stopped in the end. The giant held the trident in one hand and looked at Lin Ling indifferently. If my sea fork giant ghost moves a bit closer, you'll die. Are you really not going to say anything? You don't dare to kill me. Lin Ling was expressionless, but his heart finally relaxed. This was because he knew that the giant had finally stopped. This meant that there was still room for negotiation. You're so confident. The giant said again. Currently, only the few of us know about the records of the 8 gods. If you kill us, you'll never get any information about the records of the 8 gods. Lin Ling said calmly. Therefore, you don't dare to kill me because you can't afford to gamble. Let your master speak. You have guts. The giant kept his sea fork giant ghost and said indifferently, previously, I wouldn't have held back. However, at the crucial moment, my master told me not to kill you. Therefore, you've won the bet. Come with me. After saying that, he turned and left. Lin Ling and God Emperor Zhang Gang looked at each other and laughed. You lunatic, you actually dared to bargain with these lunatics. If they don't like it, they can kill us in a blink of an eye. God Emperor Zhang Gang said helplessly after rejoicing. I'm a lunatic and they're lunatics too. Therefore, it's most appropriate for a lunatic to deal with a lunatic. Lin Ling shrugged and walked forward with large strides. The surrounding blue giants looked down at Lin Ling, but they all made way for Lin Ling and the other 2 to walk through the group of giants. Looking ahead, the water rippled and the giant with the sea fork giant ghost was leading the way. After walking for 2 hours, the coral seabed began to appear in front of them. It was very beautiful. Various colors shone brightly, making them feel as though they had come to a mythical world. A huge palace sat in the middle of the coral. It was also very beautiful. The reason why the palace was huge was because the gate of the palace was built according to the size of the blue giants. To Lin Ling and the others, even a pillar was as big as a mountain. As for the gate, it was undoubtedly similar to the gate of Starry Sky. Looking at both sides of the door, there were also 2 tall giants standing there. However, unlike the giants outside, they were both wearing bright coral armor. At that moment, they were looking down at Lin Ling and the other 2, seemingly a little surprised. Chapter 43:20. There were quite a number of people in this hall, but every single one of them was a giant. Upon closer inspection, they were not only in the form of blue giants, but also in the form of various fish species. Shark giants, crab giants, lobster giants, and so on. Their auras were powerful, as though they were the lords of the sea. In fact, every single one of them was a lord of the sea in the 9 continents void jade divine world. Now, these lords of the sea were looking at Lin Ling's group of 3, and a powerful pressure was quietly spreading out. At this moment, even God Emperor Zhang Gang's mouth was trembling. He had come from the era of gods and had seen countless gods, but this was the first time he had seen such a large formation. He was sure that even the gods of the era of gods would be frightened out of their wits if they saw these ancient characters. Lin Ling was also paying attention to these powerful gods, and he felt as though he had arrived at an ancient temple. However, compared to God Emperor Zhang Gang's shock, he was much better. After all, he knew more things. Before the era of gods, there was an ancient era, and those gods were still alive, but they had hidden themselves. Then, Lin Ling's gaze turned to the front. There was a coral throne, and on top of it sat an even larger giant. This was a giant in the form of a dragon king, because he had a dragon head and a human body. He wore the robes of the 4 seas garrison, and a jade crown on his head. His dragon beard was long and fiery red. His hands were placed on the dragon throne, and he was looking down at Lin Ling. You are Lin Ling. Suddenly, he let out a low voice. Although his voice was not loud, it caused the hearts of all the sea lords to tremble. They did not expect the Lord Dragon King to know this human's name. I am the Dragon King of the Eastern Sea, and this is not the 8th floor of the 8 gods' heavenly palace, but the Eastern Sea of the divine world. However, the divine world was destroyed, and the divine soil was lost, so this sea is only a part of the Eastern Sea. The reason you are here is because the 8th floor of the 8 gods' heavenly palace leads to this Eastern Sea. The giant said again. I see. Lin Ling was enlightened. He felt that such a huge existence like the blue giant would not hide in the 8 gods' heavenly palace. It turned out that the blue giants of the 8 gods' heavenly palace were mostly in the Eastern Sea of the divine world. You know me? Lin Ling looked at the Dragon King and said. Ha ha ha. Upon hearing Lin Ling's words, the huge East Sea Dragon King did not answer. Instead, he laughed loudly. I'm afraid you're the only human who can remain calm after seeing me. Look at the little god behind you. He's so scared that his face is pale. He was naturally talking about Emperor God Zhang Gang. How dare you? Men, bring the wine. Then, under the East Sea Dragon King's voice, a goddess came over with a jug of wine. She put down the wine cup in front of Lin Ling and poured it for Lin Ling and the others with a smile. However, this wine cup was also very big. It was even taller than Lin Ling and the others, causing Steel Slayer God Lord and Giant Ghost to be speechless. How were they supposed to drink this? The wine of the East Sea Dragon King has long been famous. To be able to drink a mouthful of it, this trip was not in vain. On the contrary, Lin Ling raised the wine cup that was as tall as a person and drank it. Looking at his heroic appearance, the lords of the sea were full of praises. This human was indeed extraordinary. This reminded them of the expert who came to the East Sea Dragon Palace for the first time in ancient times. This god was also extraordinarily courageous. He even took away the sea-stabilizing divine needle that suppressed the sea eye of the East Sea. I have neglected you previously. I hope you can forgive me. Looking at Lin Ling gulping down the wine, the East Sea Dragon King laughed loudly and said. It's okay. No discord, no concord. Lin Ling waved his hand casually and continued to gulp down the wine as though he was a whale swallowing the sea. The lords of the sea were shocked by Lin Ling's alcohol tolerance. After all, the sea heart coral wine could even make a god drunk. Well said, no discord, no concord. Just based on these words, I will make friends with you. The Dragon King waved his hand and got someone to pour more wine. Only then did he say, in fact, there are many people in the current ancient era who have heard of your name. As for why, you will know in the future. Right, that is the will of the 8 gods, right? Then, the East Sea Dragon King looked at the giant ghost and said. Of course, there was no need for Lin Ling to answer. He was sure of everything. The 8 gods are not dead yet. He is on the 9th floor of the 8 god celestial palace. If he wants to know something, he will know it by going to the 9th floor. Moreover, the 8 gods know all the will of the 8 gods. Therefore, the 8 gods are the gods that the other gods pay attention to the most. However, there are only 7 people who can meet the 8 gods. These 7 people are the 7 wills of the 8 gods, representing the 7 emotions. The East Sea Dragon King's eyes were burning with a hint of deep meaning. The giant ghost stood there quietly like a yiksha, its fangs flashing. However, it had obtained the records of the 8 gods, so it already had a clear understanding in its heart. Unfortunately, it is very, very difficult to reach the 9th floor of the 8 god celestial palace from here. Unless it is a god with great perseverance, great fighting spirit, and great fearlessness, only then will there be a 10% chance of success. Over the years, countless gods have tried to reach the 9th floor, but the number of people who died on the way is also as vast as the sea. The East Sea Dragon King continued, and if you want to take the safest path to reach the 9th floor of the 8 god celestial palace, you can only find one person. Who? Almost at the same time, Lin Ling and the giant ghost raised their heads. Dragon subduing Arhat, this person is the reincarnation of a god. In this life, he is also known as Taoist Myriad Treasures. The East Sea Dragon King looked gravely at Lin Ling and said, Taoist Myriad Treasures. Lin Ling and the giant ghost looked at each other in shock. They naturally knew Taoist Myriad Treasures. The map of the 7th floor of the 8-god celestial palace had been bought from him. Dragon subduing Arhat. Lin Ling was even more shocked than the giant ghost, because in Chinese mythology, dragon subduing Arhat was Ji Gong, and Taoist Myriad Treasures was sloppy and looked very similar to Ji Gong. However, he was obviously the reincarnation of Ji Gong. But what surprised Lin Ling was not this, but the 8th floor's will. According to the records of the 8 gods, the 6th will of the world was Taoist Myriad Treasures. This Taoist Myriad Treasures is really not simple. Lin Ling turned to look at the giant ghost and said, because this was also what the giant ghost had told him. Yes, I didn't expect him to be the only one who knows the key to the 9th floor. The giant ghost nodded. It seems that you all know Taoist Myriad Treasures. Seeing Lin Ling and the others' expressions, the East Sea Dragon King was clearly surprised. Chapter 43-21. Okay, the will of the 8th level is Taoist Myriad Treasures. Lin Ling didn't hide anything and said directly. What? The Dragon King of the East Sea was shocked. He was shocked by this news. This was because he knew the origin of Taoist Myriad Treasures. He knew that although this person seemed frivolous, he was righteous. However, he didn't expect this person to be the will of the world. The will of the world is mysterious and ever-changing. Perhaps, the current Taoist Myriad Treasures is no longer the Taoist Myriad Treasures of the past. Or perhaps, he is still the same, but his thoughts have changed. In short, he was recorded in the records of the 8 gods. Then, he must be the will of the world. Lin Ling also understood the Dragon King of the East Sea's thoughts. He knew that it was difficult for him to accept. Unfortunately, the will of the world was so huge that it wasn't difficult to change a person, even if that person was a good person back then. However, there were exceptions to everything. For example, Xiaoluan was also the will of the world, but at least she didn't reveal any thoughts of destroying the world. What about the second one? The Dragon King of the East Sea continued to ask. Hearing this, Lin Ling and the giant ghost fell silent. In the end, Lin Ling said in a low voice, the second one is one of the 4 gods of the void of the 9 prefectures. His name is Lei Gong. Lei Gong. The Dragon King of the East Sea nodded again. However, he didn't see that Lin Ling's expression was very complicated. Because until now, he still found it difficult to admit that Lei Gong was one of the wills of the world. This news was too shocking. When Lin Ling saw the stone tablet in the ruins on the 7th level, it took him a long time to accept the news. Now, Lin Ling didn't know if Lei Gong knew that he was the will of the world. If he knew, would Lei Gong be able to accept it? Many of the wills of the world were destroyed in the War of the Gods. However, they are immortal and can be reincarnated. Therefore, the fate of those who are born with the will of the world has already been arranged. This is something they can't change. It can only be said that it is fated. At this moment, the Dragon King of the East Sea sighed and said, moreover, during the Great War of the Gods, the Great War of the Primordial World, and the Great War of the Investiture of the Gods, not all of the world wills appeared together. Some of them are still in the Great Tao of Reincarnation. However, I have a feeling that in this era, 10 world wills will appear, because in that universe, the Almighties guarding the strongest world will have noticed that the current world will is somewhat different, and it has become even crazier. Although I don't know why it's like this, these signs show that the real end of the world is not far away. Lin Ling and the others went silent when they heard this. Even if their strengths were formidable now, they were still tiny like ants when facing the formidable existences of the prehistoric era. Lin Ling, thank you for telling me about the 8 gods' notes. In return, I will help you become a god. After letting out a long sigh, the Dragon King of the East Sea collected his thoughts and looked at Lin Ling with a smile. He could also see that Lin Ling had not completely become a god, but he was just a hair's breadth away from becoming a god. If you want to achieve godly ascension with me, you'll definitely achieve godly ascension. Of course, that's only if you don't die. Then, the Dragon King of the East Sea added. Godly ascension. Lin Ling's eyes burned with passion. He naturally knew that it was extremely difficult to break through the martial god realm and become a god completely. One had to be recognized by the great path of the void. Only then would the most terrifying divine tribulation descend. However, not everyone could overcome such a divine tribulation as it covered a vast area. Because there were flaws in the martial path, the martial heart, the body, the level of the divine fetus, and so on. However, with the Dragon King of the East Sea, he could help Lin Ling achieve godly ascension. However, the process was much more difficult than breaking through on his own. If he failed, his cultivation would not regress, but he would die. It's really time-saving. After all, I haven't sensed the divine tribulation of the great path so far, and I don't know when the divine tribulation will descend. Since the Dragon King has a way, I, Lin Ling, will go all out. The corners of Lin Ling's lips curled into a smile. He guessed that the void of the 9 states had undergone a drastic change. Therefore, in order to take the initiative, he had to become stronger. Straightforward. Then follow me. Seeing that Lin Ling had agreed, the Dragon King of the East Sea nodded in appreciation. He stood up and led Lin Ling forward. That was where the sea-steadying needle used to be. However, the sea-steadying needle is no longer there. I gave it to a close friend. However, the eye of the sea that the sea-steadying needle suppressed is the best place to become a god. The Dragon King of the East Sea said as they walked. You gave the sea-steadying needle to a close friend? Wasn't it snatched away? Lin Ling followed behind and suddenly asked suspiciously. Rumble. The Dragon King of the East Sea slipped and almost fell. He looked extremely embarrassed. He forced a smile and said, he and I have been good friends for many years. How could he snatch it away? Back then, he begged me for a long time before I gave the sea-steadying needle to him. Begged? That's not right. Why is it different from what I know? I remember that the expert snatched it forcefully. The old Dragon King was on the verge of tears, but he didn't dare to say a word. Hearing this, Lin Ling frowned. He naturally knew what the sea-steadying needle was. It was the Rui Jingu Bang. As for the Dragon King of the East Sea's close friend, it was the great sage, Heaven's equal, Sun Wukong. In Journey to the West, the great sage, Heaven's equal had snatched the Rui Jingu Bang forcefully when he first came to the East Sea Dragon Palace. As for the Dragon King of the East Sea, his beard had almost been plucked off by the great sage, Heaven's equal. Rumble. The moment Lin Ling finished speaking, the Dragon King of the East Sea finally fell. The entire Dragon Palace shook. As for the lords of the sea behind him, they covered their mouths and snickered. They naturally knew about the embarrassing past. We wouldn't have known each other if we hadn't fought. Very quickly, the Dragon King of the East Sea got up. The smile on his face was even more forced. Embarrassing. Embarrassing. As the Dragon King of his generation, he had actually been humiliated by a few juniors. However, how did this Lin Ling know about the ancient legends? Could it be that he was really the reincarnation of some almighty like those people had said? The group continued forward. Before long, they finally reached the mountains behind the Dragon Palace. The mountains were majestic, like gods sitting on the ground. However, upon closer inspection, one could see that the mountains were full of scars and holes. Back then, when that close friend of mine obtained the sea-steadying needle, he waved it around in a fit of excitement. The entire East Sea tumbled. Those scars were left behind back then. It's a pity that my close friend has disappeared. Sigh. Looking at the mountains full of holes, the Dragon King of the East Sea sighed softly. As for Lin Ling, his gaze was on the mountains. A huge vortex rose up. Below the vortex was a huge, deep pit. Legend had it that the sea-steadying needle was stuck here. Chapter 43:22. Then I'll go. Go. Lin Ling could sense the mystery of the eye of the sea, but he also knew that nothing ventured, nothing gained. Lin Ling immediately shot forward. In mid-air, the real body of the Thunder Lock appeared, and 8 wings appeared, allowing him to wreak havoc like a bolt of white lightning. Lin Ling, you must cross this eye of the sea. Go. Looking at Lin Ling, Emperor God Zhang Gang and the giant ghost were a little nervous for Lin Ling. The eyes of the Dragon King of the East Sea and the other experts flickered. They knew very well that the eye of the sea had experienced countless years and seen the great tribulation of the gods. Therefore, as long as someone approached it, they would have to endure the great tribulation of the great Tao gods. The main reason was that the great sage, Heaven's Equal, had seized the godly sea-steadying needle, causing it to be unearthed. This caused the gods and Buddhas to be dissatisfied, and all the gods and Buddhas in the eye of the sea had set up a god's domain. However, the great sage, Heaven's Equal, was too ferocious. When he waved the godly sea-steadying needle, he destroyed the great tribulation of the gods and Buddhas. Therefore, the great tribulation of the gods did not disturb the great sage, Heaven's Equal. Instead, it left a lot of trouble for him. Crackle. After Lin Ling got closer, he immediately sensed a terrifying whirlpool that wanted to tear his body apart. This whirlpool was very strange. Not only was it harmful to the physical body, but it was also fatal to the divine fetus, dantian, and soul. This also made Lin Ling realize that this whirlpool was several times more powerful than the East Sea whirlpool. First stage. Go. Lin Ling sensed that he could not hold on any longer, so he immediately increased his strength again. Now, he had not even reached the eye of the sea, but he had to use 60% of his strength. This showed how terrifying the huge pit was. It was hard to imagine how the great sage, Heaven's Equal, had seized the godly sea-steadying needle. He was so powerful. After activating the first stage of the innate talent fusion, the pressure on Lin Ling lessened a little, but it didn't last for long. When he was about to approach the eye of the sea, he heard the endless sound of a tsunami, as if countless people were roaring in his ears. It gave him a splitting headache, and his soul almost exploded. However, the huge crater also appeared before his eyes. Looking at the crater up close, Lin Ling discovered that the crater was even bigger than he had imagined. It was hard to imagine just how big the sea-stabilizing divine needle was. Back then, the great sage Equaling Heaven was able to pull out the sea-stabilizing divine needle, but I'm not as powerful as that legendary figure. But if I can't even reach the eye of the sea, then what's the point of me practicing martial arts? Lin Ling's eyes were bloodshot, he looked up to the sky and roared, second section. The 3 divine embryos erupted with power. Glaring Vajra, Human King's Aura, and Tyrannical Thunder Lake, these 3 gods stood guard behind Lin Ling, causing Lin Ling's aura to rise crazily. This guy actually hid the talents of so many gods. He's not simple at all. The Dragon King of the East Sea and the Lords of the Seas all looked at Lin Ling. This was the first time they had seen Lin Ling's methods, and they were a little surprised. This was because, from ancient times until now, they had seen countless gods come into being, as well as countless otherworldlings. But for someone like Lin Ling, who had 7 divine embryos suppressed his entire life, this was the first time they had seen such a thing. It was hard to imagine how 7 different powers could be present in one body at the same time. Rumble. Looking at the eye of the sea, after the 3 divine embryos were activated, Lin Ling's strength soared, and he finally disappeared into the huge eye of the sea. However, when the eye of the sea sensed the arrival of life, it immediately overturned the seas and rivers, causing the entire East Sea to shake. It was as if the sea-stabilizing divine needle had been unearthed. It's begun. The Dragon King of the East Sea muttered to himself as he watched the tyrannical whirlpool soar into the sky. He knew that everything that followed would depend on Lin Ling himself. Rumble. Bang. 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 Inside the eye of the sea, Lin Ling finally understood how terrifying this place was. It was like a violent storm, and the tyrannical whirlpool rose from the bottom of his feet. It was as if countless hands were pressing on Lin Ling's body, wanting to tear him apart. Ha! Oh! Even with Lin Ling's strong physical body, he was still vomiting blood. This eye of the sea has a power that surpasses the steps of the gods. Oh! Lin Ling's mind seemed to explode. He held his head with both hands, and his whole body twitched non-stop. Right now, he felt as if he was the great sage equal to heaven, suppressed by the Buddha god in the Five-Finger Mountain and refined into a pill furnace. That feeling of powerlessness continued to spread out from his body, as if it was going to destroy him. However, during this process, Lin Ling also felt that within the huge whirlpool, there was a mysterious power that was constantly changing his body. His realm essence was currently transforming, turning into a power that was recognized by the divine world. This was divine origin. This power had the power to turn something rotten into something miraculous. If realm essence was the power of the 9 prefectures, then divine origin was the power of the divine world, or even the entire universe. Third stage. Sensing that he could no longer bear it, Lin Ling also let out an angry roar and used his final trump card. In the huge eye of the sea, the grey-robed Lin Ling appeared. The moment he appeared, his body that was originally moving with the whirlpool quietly stabilized. The third stage was too powerful. His realm essence, divine embryo, physical strength, and divine origin had all reached the peak. After stabilizing his body, Lin Ling took a deep breath. His eyes looked at the deep hole that was constantly surging with exploding whirlpools. Finally, he gritted his teeth and rushed down. He clearly knew that with this area, if he wanted to completely become a god, he was still lacking. Crash! After activating the 15 realm speed, Lin Ling continued to sink. However, as time passed, the terrifying pressure became greater and greater. Get lost! Crash! Lin Ling continued to attack, trying to destroy all the whirlpools around him. Now, his eyes were red and his hair was messy. He was going crazy again. Crash! However, at this moment, there was a rumbling sound. A huge light appeared under his feet, forming a dazzling hot storm. Mixed with seawater, it wrapped around Lin Ling. Is it fire? Divine fire? Crash! Lin Ling was shocked. It was no longer a whirlpool of seawater. Ah! Crash! By the time he reacted, the firestorm had already wrapped around Lin Ling. It was constantly tearing him apart and burning him. Within the storm, Lin Ling's body was constantly being destroyed and fused together. His physical body was simply too powerful. If it was anyone else, they would definitely have died. There were no inner demons in the eye of the sea, but the tyrannical power was not something ordinary people could withstand. Therefore, in the era of the gods, even if people knew that the eye of the sea could allow one to undergo tribulation, very few people dared to do so unless they were crazy. Lin Ling was also forced by the situation. After all, if he had to wait for the Great Void Tribulation to arrive, he did not know how long it would take. He could not wait. Chapter 43-23. Damn it, there's more. More. Lin Ling sensed that the power was the power of frost. Then, he was wrapped in a frost storm and constantly frozen. Then, he was burned and destroyed by the firestorm and shattered into pieces of glass. However, his physical body could be reborn from a drop of blood. Therefore, the fragments gave birth to Lin Ling, but they were baptized by the catastrophe again. More. More. Soon, Lin Ling let out another angry roar because he found that another black power was born under his feet. This time, it was the storm of the underworld. In the storm, countless underworld spirits came with chains, scythes, and soul-beating sticks. Lin Ling even saw Mengpa, the black and white impermanence, and the king of hell. Whoosh! After the black storm wrapped around Lin Ling sensed that countless underworld spirits were tearing his soul apart. Is this bullshit catastrophe really so difficult to pass? More. Lin Ling held his head and kept kicking in the air. Now, in addition to his physical body, his soul was also destroyed. If he wanted to take a shortcut and become a god quickly, the process was obviously very simple. Sometimes, the vast void was also very fair. However, the black storm was not the end, because under Lin Ling's feet, there were a few storms of different colors that came gushing from the back of the mountain. There was divine thunder. There was a blade. There was a curse. More and more storms wrapped around Lin Ling, as if they wanted to kill Lin Ling here. Rumble. In the distance, people stared ahead without blinking. They could see that there were storms of different colors in the huge sea in front of them. It was very terrifying. The sea tribulation, from ancient times to the age of gods, very few people succeeded. 99% of them died there. The Dragon King of the East Sea narrowed his eyes and said lightly. His red beard swayed quietly under the waves. He looked calm, but in fact, he was a little nervous. Since the success rate is so high, Dragon King, why did you let Lin Ling undergo the tribulation? Hearing this, the giant ghost couldn't help but cry out in worry. It almost rushed over to grab the Dragon King's beard and viciously pull it out. However, the Dragon King of the East Sea didn't mind the giant ghost's rudeness. He calmly said, "Those who can cross such a great calamity are all variables in the void. My close friend back then was one of them." Bullshit. Lin Ling is just an ordinary person from the sacred land of the rainforest. How could he be a variable in the void? You've killed him. When the giant ghost saw that the light from the sea was becoming more and more blinding, he became even more worried. Hearing this, the Dragon King of the East Sea shook his head and didn't say anything. Seeing that he didn't say anything, the giant ghost finally couldn't take it anymore. It flew over and landed on the Dragon King of the East Sea's dragon whiskers, pulling them furiously. "How dare you!" Seeing this, the ocean overlords all shouted angrily. However, the Dragon King of the East Sea waved his hand indifferently. His eyes were still staring in the direction of the sea. He suddenly laughed and said, "Lin Ling might be a variable in the void." He knew very well that in ancient times, Lin Ling's name had been praised by many ancient almighties. If Lin Ling was just an ordinary existence, how could those ancient almighties remember Lin Ling's name? This was also the reason why he brought Lin Ling to the sea to undergo the tribulation. Of course, he was also taking a gamble. If Lin Ling was just an ordinary person, then he might have died in the sea. This also proved that the ancient almighties had misjudged Lin Ling. In fact, I've been observing him before, but I discovered that although he has 7 divine embryos, he's still far from being a variable in the void. Therefore, I've always been curious about what makes him different. The Dragon King of the East Sea sighed and said softly. Boom! At this moment, 7 rays of light of different colors suddenly shot out from the huge eye of the sea. They were Lin Ling's 7 divine embryos. Moreover, these 7 divine embryos seemed to be a little different than usual. There was an indescribable power in them. Although this power was very dim, even a trace of it seemed to be able to reverse the universe and change the void of the entire universe. This. The Dragon King of the East Sea's pupils contracted. The ocean overlords also opened their mouths wide. What was that? It's his Dantian. The Dragon King of the East Sea suddenly let out a shocked roar. The giant ghost under his neck also stopped plucking the Dragon King of the East Sea's beard and looked at the sea eye in shock. Dantian. If he remembered correctly, Lin Ling seemed to be able to form a Dantian. Could this be the reason why the ancient almighties valued Lin Ling? It should be his Dantian. Legend has it that when 9 by 9 returns to 1, the creators will awaken and fight against the world's will. The Dragon King of the East Sea suddenly became agitated, his body trembling. In his mind, the primordial age, the age of the gods, and even the primordial age that he had never seen before flashed past his mind. The famous gods of those eras, Jiang Taigong, Neza, the pagoda-bearing heavenly king, the great sage, heaven's equal, the Jade Emperor, and other experts also appeared quietly and then disappeared. However, these famous deities and Buddhas didn't have a variable like Lin Ling, who had the unique trait of returning 9 to 1. Whoosh! At this time, a multicolored beam of light shot out from the huge eye of the sea, causing the water of the entire East Sea to move. Within the beam of light, a figure seemed to be bathed in it and slowly floated up. This person had his arms crossed in front of his chest. His clothes were tattered, and his muscles were bleeding profusely. However, his eyes were bright as he stared coldly ahead. Even though blood was seeping out of the corner of his mouth, he was unmoved. He was Lin Ling. Previously, he had almost been torn apart by the sea eye's power. However, at the critical moment, his Dantian was suddenly stimulated by a powerful force, causing his 7 Dantians to fuse. One had to know that Lin Ling's third talent fusion had always been talent fusion. He had never tried to fuse his Dantian. After all, this represented 7 different powers, the 7 Tao universes. However, under the stimulation of external forces, this time, the fusion was complete. After the fusion, his Dantian became vast and mysterious, and there were strands of mysterious power that quietly overflowed. It was this power that helped Lin Ling to survive the sea eye's calamity. Now, the power of the calamity was quietly diminishing, so Lin Ling was also recovering quickly. Bathed in the beam of light, Lin Ling also noticed that his talents were increasing rapidly. The talents of the double dragon had reached the 5th grade. Chapter 43-24. And this was precisely divine essence. With this power in his body, Lin Ling sensed that the power contained in the vortex and the light beam around him could not affect him at all. Lin Ling was like a sea-stabilizing needle in a raging sea. He would not be alarmed even if the sky collapsed. I've finally become a deity. My cultivation is now at the early stage of the lower deity realm. Lin Ling muttered to himself. He looked at the people in the distance and said calmly, "I'm still alive." After he said that, the Dragon King of the East Sea and the others laughed excitedly. After so many years, Lin Ling could be considered one of the few people who had survived the calamity of the Eye of the Sea. The giant ghost and Emperor God Zhang Gang looked excited. They were happy for Lin Ling. When Lin Ling was at the martial god realm, he could already fight against an early stage lower deity. If he reached the early stage of the lower deity realm, he would be unrivaled among the lower deities. Times have changed. Now, there is one more deity who has been recognized by the void. Let's go. He will be comprehending it soon. Let's wait for him at the Dragon Palace. The Dragon King of the East Sea felt as if a heavy stone had been lifted from his heart. He then left with the others. The giant ghost suppressed the excitement in its heart and gave Lin Ling, who was still floating in the pillar of light, a thumbs up. Then, it left. Seeing that everyone had left, Lin Ling focused on bathing in the light pillar. He sensed that the light pillar had suppressed all the power that had destroyed him previously. However, the power was no longer hostile. Instead, it was a power that made him feel comfortable. It was nourishing his body. Therefore, Lin Ling did not want to waste this power. He absorbed it with all his might. My divine energy is increasing rapidly. My soul energy is also increasing. My physical strength is also increasing. The benefits of becoming a deity were obvious. Lin Ling was surprised. No wonder so many martial gods wanted to become a deity. Unknowingly, his soul force had reached the level of 100,000, stepping into the level of 100,000. As for his physical strength, he already had the power of 500,000 worlds. If he fused with the third stage talent, he could reach the power of 1.5 million worlds. Of course, this large increase was mainly due to the 7 divine embryos. The effects of the 7 divine embryos were naturally not as simple as 1 plus 1. Looking at his speed again, his original speed was 150,000 realms. If he fused with his innate talent, he could reach 200,000 realms. As for the power of divinity, it was 2,000 strands of power of divinity. If it was the third stage, it would be one of the 6,000 daos. This was another huge leap. No wonder divine embryos are so important to gods. The higher the grade of the divine embryo, the more divine power it can bring, said Lin Ling in astonishment. He knew that even if the others had stepped into early-stage low-god realm, the extent of their improvement would not be as great as his. After all, if he was the only one who had made a breakthrough, it would mean that all 7 of them had made a breakthrough as well. Of course, Lin Ling also felt lucky that he was able to successfully break through. If he did not possess the primal chaos divine formula, he would have died in the eye of the sea. This also confirmed Lin Ling's conjecture that the primal chaos divine formula was the #1 cultivation technique in the void. Now, if I were in the land of the 9 prefectures, I might even be able to take on the 4 great gods head-on. Lin Ling took a deep breath, closed his eyes, and waited for the energy around him to continuously flow into his body. Time passed just like that. After an unknown period of time, the sea gradually calmed down. The pillar of light that shot up to the sky became dimmer and dimmer before finally disappearing. A figure floated down from the eye of the sea. With a wave of his right hand, a blue robe covered his body. After tying up his long hair, the newcomer left along the mountains. In the Dragon Palace, when everyone knew that Lin Ling had come out of seclusion, they all came to welcome him with smiles. In the huge hall of the Dragon Palace, the lords of the sea were all standing there. Congratulations, congratulations. Now, there's another god. The Dragon King of the East Sea cupped his hands and said to Lin Ling. His attitude was also different from before. He no longer considered himself as a senior, but as an equal to Lin Ling. This was because Lin Ling had become a god, and a god with extraordinary potential. Therefore, the Dragon King of the East Sea naturally let go of his previous attitude. He handed it over. I'm indebted to the old Dragon King for your help. I thank you here. After Lin Ling became a god, he felt that he was more familiar with the great Tao of the void. Unknowingly, his soul seemed to know many things. This feeling was very strange. It was indescribable and unclear. Therefore, he did not feel as amazed as before when he faced the Dragon King of the East Sea. Instead, he felt that everything was normal. Of course, everyone noticed this slight change. They knew that Lin Ling's attitude was mainly because Lin Ling's strength had increased too much. Unknowingly, he had narrowed the gap between him and the Dragon King of the East Sea. Celestial Emperor Zhang Gang could not do the same. Whether it was in the past or now, whenever he saw the Dragon King of the East Sea, he would more or less revere him. Lin Ling, congratulations. At this moment, the giant ghost smiled. As he looked like a yiksha, his smile gave off a sinister vibe. However, Lin Ling was too familiar with the giant ghost. Therefore, the sinister vibe felt more intimate to Lin Ling. Moreover, Lin Ling also noticed that ever since the giant ghost obtained the diary of the 8 gods, he had changed a lot. He gave off the vibe of the 8 gods. Early low god. TSK, TSK. You are the fastest person I have ever seen to become a god. Celestial Emperor Zhang Gang sized up Lin Ling and suddenly said, "Lin Ling, I am a mid-stage low god. Why don't we have a spar?" Although his cultivation level was higher than Lin Ling's, he felt that Lin Ling's fighting strength was definitely not much weaker than his. Sure. Lin Ling had no reason to refuse, because he also wanted to test out his own strength. Come. Celestial Emperor Zhang Gang accepted the challenge immediately. After drinking the wine in his hand, he stepped out and came to the center of the hall. The hall was incomparably grand. Even if the two of them were gods, their battle would not affect the hall. Lin Ling also took a sip of wine and immediately walked out. The two of them stood hundreds of meters apart and looked at each other with a smile. However, although they didn't seem to make a move, the void between the two of them was quietly turbulent at this moment. Waves of powerful divine origin were colliding with each other. These divine origin had the power to reverse the universe and distort black and white. This was also the first time Lin Ling used his divine origin to fight. He realized that his divine origin was much stronger than he had imagined. Come out. Lin Ling roared and took the lead. He waved his right hand and his divine origin surged. Then, thunderous crackling sounds could be heard. Colorful lights appeared and lingered around. They turned into colorful weapons. Chapter 43-25. There were many effects of divine origin. At some point, it could be comparable to soul power. It could be used to predict fortune, change one's fate, or even change a realm. Then, Lin Ling had turned his divine origin into a weapon. This was one of the means of divine origin. In actual fact, as long as Lin Ling wanted to, he could turn his divine origin into anything. This was one of the means of a god. Do you think you are the only one who can transform? Emperor God Zhang Gang smiled faintly and waved his right hand. Black divine origin appeared and turned into countless steel weapons. Then, they started fighting with the weapons that Lin Ling had turned into. Bang! 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 The battle was extremely intense. The fighting power was ferocious and comparable to an early-stage martial god. Swoosh! At this moment, Lin Ling took a step forward and shot towards Emperor God Zhang Gang. He threw a punch out. Good lad. When he is controlling a weapon to fight, he can still fight. With this move, Lin Ling is more powerful than an ordinary early-stage lower god. Seeing Lin Ling's carefree look, many ocean lords laughed. The crab-like ocean king even clapped his two pincers. However, the way he clapped looked a little weird. Good one. Emperor God Zhang Gang's body turned black. His arm was so black that it was dazzling. It was like an indestructible steel. He threw a punch at Lin Ling. Emperor God Zhang Gang's strength is not bad. He has a strand of God steps. Although it is very little, it is enough to be proud. After all, many middle gods do not have God steps. However, Lin Ling has just broken through. Emperor God Zhang Gang is too embarrassed to use God steps. Seeing Emperor God Zhang Gang attack, the surrounding ocean lords evaluated. Don't underestimate him. When that guy was in martial god realm, he already had God steps. Moreover, his comprehension level is extremely high. Emperor God Zhang Gang could not help but scold the ocean lords. During this period of time, he had become familiar with the ocean lords. He was just in awe of the East Sea Dragon King. Boom! The two of them came from afar and collided fiercely. At the center of their fists, the void shattered like glass. There was an illusion of another universe. Moreover, the experts of that universe could also see the battle between the two gods through the void. Each and every one of them was so frightened that their faces turned pale. Those who were timid even began to prostrate themselves in worship. Because the cultivators in that expanse of the void had never seen such a strong cultivator. Battle of creation gods, battle of gods. They roared towards the sky. Emperor God Zhang Gang. Lin Ling Emperor. You better use your full strength. Emperor God Zhang Gang laughed. Previously, he was afraid that he would hurt Lin Ling. Therefore, he had suppressed his strength. Now, he realized that he had been overthinking. Because after he collided with Lin Ling, he noticed that Lin Ling's divine energy was so thick that it wasn't much inferior to a mid-stage low god like him. Lin Ling's advantage was not only his divine origin but also his physical body that was comparable to a divine demon. Ka ka ka. Veins appeared on Emperor God Zhang Gang's steel arm. Upon closer inspection, it looked as though there was black blood flowing down his arm. Xian Gang. He roared. His voice was like thunder. A total of 4,000 streaks of divine origin burst out from his fist. First stage fusion. Lin Ling also roared. His body began to change quietly. Countless tentacles appeared behind him. 3,000 streaks of divine origin were reflected back. Good fellow. Emperor God Zhang Gang roared. Although Lin Ling's divine origin was 1,000 streaks less than his, Lin Ling's other advantages were strong and made up for the lack of divine origin. 3,000 worlds, magnificent wind Xian Gang. Emperor God Zhang Gang activated his divine origin again and reached 5,000 streaks. Around his body, a huge black circle appeared. It was like a fortress and also like a complicated divine rune. It provided Emperor God Zhang Gang with great power. Lin Ling's arm began to tremble. His eyes twinkled. Emperor God Zhang Gang was a figure from the era of gods. The divine origin that he possessed was very strong. Moreover, it had the taste of steel. Steel was the hardest and indestructible. Second stage. Facing such an ancient god, Lin Ling did not hide anything. Human King, King Kong, and God of Thunder appeared behind him. The three divine embryos were undoubtedly twice as strong as before. 7th grade divine embryo. Emperor God Zhang Gang's eyes narrowed. Although he had a 9th grade divine embryo, facing Lin Ling's 3 divine embryos together, he immediately felt an indescribable pressure. Moreover, Lin Ling's 2nd stage innate talent fusion allowed him to sense that Lin Ling had 4,000 streaks of divine origin. However, its power was comparable to 6,000 streaks of divine origin. The reason was that Lin Ling's physical strength had increased greatly. This strength is similar to Grey Robe Lin Ling's. Emperor God Zhang Gang recalled the time when the three of them worked together to kill the Blue Giant. At that time, Lin Ling's strength was as strong as it was now. However, if he did not hear wrongly, the current Lin Ling was only at the 2nd stage innate talent fusion. Lin Ling, I'll let you see my divine embryos. Emperor God Zhang Gang suppressed the shock in his heart. When his fist came into contact with Lin Ling's fist, a pitch-black light suddenly engulfed Lin Ling's fist. When it came into contact with Lin Ling's arm, it caused Lin Ling's arm to turn pitch-black, as though it had been tempered. What? Lin Ling lowered his head to take a look. His expression changed instantly. Hee, this is the power of my innate talent. A 9th grade divine embryo that can absorb black iron. Back then, I was from the spaceship Divine Hall and was quite famous there. Now that it has been engulfed by my black iron, unless it's a Tao of mutual restraint, it's impossible to break it. Emperor God Zhang Gang chuckled as he saw the black iron continue to engulf Lin Ling. That's not necessarily true. However, before the laughter ended, Lin Ling's body shook and the 7 divine embryos exploded at the same time. The black iron that covered the surface of his body immediately cracked. Then, it peeled off like an eggshell. This time, the real Lin Ling in the grey robe had appeared. Bang bang bang. Emperor God Zhang Gang was hit by the aura and took a few steps back. His eyes were filled with shock. Was this Lin Ling's full strength? That was too ferocious. He could fight with a mid-stage lower god. Awesome, bullshit. After a long time, Emperor God Zhang Gang spat out these two sentences. Then, he shook his head helplessly. It seems like there's no need to spar. I, a mid-stage lower god, am not your match. Emperor God Zhang Gang, you haven't used your full strength. As for me, I've used my full strength. However, Lin Ling smiled and shook his head. At the same time, he exited the innate talent fusion stage. Then, his soul power had increased greatly. Therefore, the time he could fuse had increased by a lot. Chapter 43-26. Hearing that, Lin Ling smiled awkwardly. Because his fighting power could actually increase by another 10 to 20%. Especially now that he had reached the step of wisdom, it was no small matter. It wouldn't be difficult to seal Emperor God Zhang Gang. Lin Ling, after you became a god, your strength is much stronger than before. When the Dragon King of the East Sea saw that the sparring had ended, he immediately looked at Lin Ling and smiled. Lin Ling was also one of the more special existences among the gods he had met, just like his close friend back in the day. In fact, in the age of the gods in the primordial era, every famous god had their own unique skills that made them famous. For example, his close friends, 8-9 arcane art, a certain god's divine tree that could farm any treasure, or some ancient almighty being's unparalleled speed. Lin Ling's unique skills were naturally his unparalleled divine origin and divine embryo. Thank you for your hospitality, Dragon King. However, I'm afraid something big has happened in the void of the 9 states, so I have to rush back immediately. I hope you can forgive me. At this moment, Lin Ling cupped his hands and said to the old Dragon King. You should be talking about the 8 gods' diary. The Dragon King of the East Sea said solemnly, now, the hosts of the world are beginning to descend one by one. Sigh, the world's righteous path is full of vicissitudes. You should go back quickly. Don't let the world will succeed. Once the world will descends, no one can stop it. Okay. Lin Ling nodded. After cupping his hands, he left with the giant ghost and Emperor God Zhang Gang. The Dragon King of the East Sea looked at Lin Ling and said to the Lords of the Sea, don't you think he's like my close friend back then? A little. The Lords of the Sea looked at each other and laughed. They're a little alike. They're both fearless. However, Lin Ling is calmer than my close friend. He's also one of the variables in the void. I hope he can change the entire universe. The Dragon King of the East Sea looked into the distance and sighed. He didn't know what the world would look like when the 9 nines returned to 1 appeared. Perhaps this was one of the things that could resist the will of the world. At this moment, after Lin Ling and Emperor God Zhang Gang left the Dragon Palace, they swam along the sea. After Lin Ling became a god, he felt that the surrounding tyrannical seawater had weakened a lot. Dear guests, if you wish to leave the 8th floor, please head to the Lost Island. At this time, the surrounding seawater changed and turned into blue giants. They spoke human language and were very polite to Lin Ling and the other 2. Alright, please lead the way. Lin Ling naturally knew that this was the Eastern Sea Dragon King's intention. Moreover, everything was as Grandpa Treasure God had said, the blue giant was indeed the Eastern Sea Dragon King's bodyguard. Oh right, did you see a powerful old man? Suddenly, Lin Ling also thought about Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu and immediately asked the blue giant. They are in the south of the ocean, and they are still fighting. What surprised Lin Ling was that these blue giants actually knew the whereabouts of Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu. Moreover, Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu was still fighting. Bring me there immediately. Lin Ling's face turned cold, he was a little worried about Grandpa Treasure God. Alright, dear guests. The blue giants nodded. Then, seeing that Lin Ling and the rest were slow, they immediately let Lin Ling ride on their shoulders. Actually, Lin Ling and the rest were not slow, they just had to use all their strength. However, this kind of speed consumed a lot of god origin energy. On the other hand, the blue giants were formed from the sea. Not only were they fast, they did not even need to use any strength. Immediately, a large group of blue giants rushed towards the east. That direction was beyond the 8 gods' heavenly palaces area and did not belong to the eastern sea. Therefore, even if they knew that treasure god Nanwu Fengyu was fighting, they were too lazy to care. Their goal was to protect the dragon palace. So fast. Standing on the giant's shoulder, Lin Ling felt the sound of seawater rumbling in his ears. After assessing, he immediately knew that this was a speed of 300,000 world realms, which was slightly faster than his own speed. Almost there. Not long after, the blue giant under Lin Ling's feet said, causing Lin Ling's eyes to immediately look into the distance. Looking up, he saw an island floating in the sea in the distance. It was also covered in bubbles, but at this moment, the island was constantly emitting light, as if there were flowers blooming on the island. The light was obviously brought about by a powerful battle. It's still a battle. Lin Ling's pupils constricted. The battle between Grandpa Treasure God and Lord Ning started when he destroyed the underground palace and continued until now. As expected of a battle between gods. Boom boom boom. At this moment, on the island, the fierce battle was still going on. The entire island was now in ruins. There were no plants or creatures to be seen, only countless experts of the spirit kingdom were watching the battle. Looking at the ground, there were craters with a radius of 10,000 miles everywhere, covering the entire island. Treasure God, let's see how long you can last. A cold voice floated out. Under the sky, a figure stood there. His clothes were tattered, but his divine aura was awe-inspiring. He was Minister Ning. This man was no longer as gentle and refined as before. Instead, he was a little crazy. He was like a mad god. Of course, Minister Ning was in a sorry state, but Nanwu Fengyu wasn't much better off. His clothes were tattered and blood was dripping from the corner of his mouth. His silver hair was no longer lustrous. You can't last much longer. Looking at Minister Ning with his tired eyes, Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu laughed heartily. However, as he laughed, a few of his teeth fell out. Huh, look at your miserable appearance. You're so embarrassing. Seeing Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu's appearance, Minister Ning couldn't help but laugh. But as he laughed, he also vomited blood. Ha ha ha. This time, it was Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu's turn to laugh. In the distance, countless experts of the spirit kingdom were watching this scene with serious eyes. This was because these two experts had been fighting for a year. The battle was so intense that it felt like the sky was falling and the earth was splitting. That kind of power could kill any martial god realm expert. It's hard to imagine that they could use such terrifying power for a year. Someone said in a low voice with a hint of shock in his voice. They're evenly matched. Someone else said. Boom boom boom. As they were talking, the two of them collided again, blasting a large number of craters into the ground that was already full of holes. This is the 325th time. Everyone immediately retreated. Their bodies were protected by vital energy as they watched the battle in the distance with solemn eyes. Chapter 43:27. Seeing the two gods fighting without any regard for their lives, many people felt that victory or defeat would be decided in this short period of time. If Nanwu Fengyu loses, remember, you must kill him. His body is full of treasures and must be offered to the spirit nation. At this time, a deep voice suddenly came, causing many people to turn around and see a man in a long robe. Holy Spirit. People immediately bowed, knowing that this man was the current Holy Spirit, Han Xie. Lord Holy Spirit, are we going to kill Nanwu Fengyu? Someone looked at Han Xie and asked. That's right, this is also Lord Ning's intention, as well as the intention of the spirit nation's great god. Anyone who goes against the spirit nation must die, especially those who will never submit. Lord Ning also said that Nanwu Fenyu treasure god will never submit. Adding on the fact that he caused a ruckus on the island and let Steel Slayer god go, Emperor, this is a great crime. Han Xie said word by word, his eyes cold. Thinking about Lin Ling and the others who died at the bottom of the ocean, he was extremely unhappy because in his opinion, Lin Ling should have died by his hands. Boom! At this time, a dazzling sun appeared in the sky. Two forces crazily clashed. One was the power of wind and rain, the other was the power of frost. The power of the sun constantly spewed out, causing the earth to become stormy and frost to fill the sky. But at this time, a groan suddenly came out. The old man with the fluttering hair suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and roared, "Minister Ning, you actually borrowed the power of the spirit nation. You have an unfair advantage." "Huh, the spirit nation's power is also my power. How is this unfair? We've fought for 400 days, now there should be a result." On the other side, Minister Ning sneered. In fact, he had reached his limit. However, a mysterious power suddenly came and provided him with a portion of his power. He knew that this power came from the great god of the spirit nation. Moreover, the great god of the spirit nation also sent a message to him. It was to kill Nanwu Fenyu. Therefore, although he had an unfair advantage, he did not dare to disobey the great god of the spirit nation. Die! He waved his hand, and the giant sun in front of him drowned out the treasure god of Nanwu Fenyu. The latter let out a painful roar. Boom! The sun suddenly exploded, revealing treasure god Nanwu Fenyu's body. However, he was now covered in blood and his eyes were filled with madness. However, Minister Ning could see that Nanwu Fenyu had reached his limit. Treasure god, our grudges can be traced back to the era of the gods. We have fought many times, and if it wasn't you who was injured, then it was me who was injured. I didn't think that today, this bond would come to an end. Minister Ning walked step by step towards Nanwu Fenyu treasure god. His eyes, which were originally filled with madness, had unknowingly recovered. There was an additional trace of yearning and reluctance. Even though he hated Nanwu Fenyu as well, he still had a friendly relationship with this old man after countless years of war. Therefore, his relationship with treasure god Nanwu Fenyu was very strange. They seemed to be enemies, but they also seemed to appreciate each other. Yeah, I didn't expect it to end here either. Nanwu Fenyu treasure god now knew about him. With his current strength, he could fight against a martial god, but clearly not against Minister Ning. We've fought 300 times, right? Suddenly, Nanwu Fenyu treasure god whispered. Seeing Minister Ning nod, he smiled. In fact, after fighting for so long, other than the stubbornness in my heart, I don't hate you at all. Me too. Minister Ning stopped and nodded. Ha ha ha. They glanced at each other, then let out heroic smiles. That was because they were also friends that had been forged through fighting. Let's do it. After Nanwu Fenyu treasure god laughed, he suddenly felt relieved and said, "She's been waiting for me for a long time. I should go accompany her." Hearing this, Minister Ning's eyes became serious. There was an additional trace of reluctance. It was as if in the future, he had lost an enemy who dared to fight against him with all his strength. This made him feel like he had lost something important. Sorry, Minister Ning, sometimes can't help myself. Minister Ning's arm, which was hanging by his leg, quietly gathered a powerful force. I know. Nanwu Fenyu treasure god smiled, dying in your hands is better than dying in the hands of those who want to cause trouble. At least, I've fought with you more than 300 times, and after 300 times, you've succeeded in killing me. But before I die, I want to know what she said to you. Minister Ning's heart trembled. He almost wanted to say it, but for some reason, he didn't want to say it. Speak. Nanwu Fenyu treasure god roared when he saw Minister Ning's silence. I'm sorry, I can let you do anything, but there are two things that I can't let you do. First, the spirit nation, and second, her. Minister Ning shook his head in the end. He couldn't tell Nanwu Feng you treasure God that she said before she died that she loved Nanwu Feng you treasure God. Treasure God, rest in peace. Then, Minister Ning attacked. You bastard. Nanwu Feng you treasure God cursed. He was about to die, but Minister Ning still didn't say anything. He's finally dead. In the distance, the experts of the spirit nation narrowed their eyes. Han Xie's lips curled up in anticipation because the spirit nation had promised him that if Nanwu Feng you treasure God died, his body would belong to Han Xie. Nanwu Feng you treasure God was a late lower god, so his body was naturally incomparably precious. Grandpa treasure God, I'll save you. However, just as Minister Ning was about to attack, a loud roar suddenly sounded, shocking the entire island. Almost instantly, everyone raised their heads, their faces filled with disbelief. Minister Ning and Han Xie's bodies trembled, and their eyes widened. They said at the same time, Lin Ling. How is that possible? Didn't Lin Ling die at the bottom of the sea? After recovering from his shock, Han Xie gritted his teeth and said. When the island collapsed, countless people fell to the bottom of the sea and were killed by the blue giant. This was something he had seen with his own eyes. If it wasn't for the great god of the spirit nation, he, Han Xie, would have died there. But now, Lin Ling was still alive. Lin Ling. When Nanwu Feng you treasure God heard this, his heart of death suddenly saw a ray of light. He had fought with Minister Ning for countless years, and he was also tired. However, Minister Ning didn't say the words she said before she left. This made Nanwu Feng you treasure God very unwilling. If he didn't hear those words, he didn't want to die. And now, Lin Ling had come to help him. This brat is really so powerful. Chapter 43-28. Treasure God, do you think Lin Ling will be of any help? Maybe I'll kill him too. But soon, Minister Ning sneered and looked at Nanwu Feng you. Nanwu Feng you's eyes narrowed. Yes, with Lin Ling's strength, how could he be Minister Ning's opponent? However, he suddenly thought of something. After all, during the battle on the island, everyone thought Lin Ling was going to drink Meng Po's soup and go to the underworld. But Lin Ling didn't. Instead, he destroyed the island. So now, everything was possible. I said before that Lin Ling was a message arranged by the heavens. She told me through Lin Ling that she must love me. Now that Lin Ling is here, it proves her feelings even more. At this thought, Nanwu Feng Bao smiled brilliantly. Treasure God, you're dreaming. Minister Ning said in a low voice. He obviously thought of the island. Now, I'll kill the will of the heavens right in front of you. This will also prove that everything is just your imagination. She loves me. Then, Minister Ning roared and his divine energy surged. His eyes looked into the distance, wanting to kill Lin Ling. However, just as he took a step in the sky, he stopped abruptly. Looking at the Spirit Kingdom experts on the island, they originally wanted to take revenge on Lin Ling. But after seeing the scene in the distance, none of them dared to move. The more cowardly ones were so scared that their faces turned pale. Because looking at the horizon, there was a sea of blue. On the other side of the island, rolling ocean water rushed into the sky as if it was going to drown the entire island. In front of the ocean, countless blue giants were walking over step by step. These were the blue giants. Even someone as strong as Nanwu Feng you had to retreat from one blue giant. But there was more than one. Looking at the shoulder of the leading blue giant, a figure stood there proudly. His eyes were cold as if a king had returned. Oh my God! After seeing the blue giant clearly, the Spirit Kingdom experts were so scared that they fell to the ground. After all, they had just witnessed the blue giants massacre a year ago. Any expert who fell into the hands of the blue giant would be killed instantly. Lin Ling, it's him. Han Xie's eyes narrowed and his body trembled with anger. Why didn't the blue giant kill Lin Ling but help Lin Ling instead? Why? This was too unfair. He was afraid that he was dreaming, so he slapped himself hard. But in the end, even though his teeth were knocked out, the illusion in front of him was real. Blue giant. Minister Ning's eyes narrowed. He had been on the island for many years, so he knew how terrifying the blue giants were. These creatures were inhumane. As long as they dared to leave the island, they would be killed without mercy. Over the years, he had tried to communicate with the blue giants, but in the end, these blue giants were like Buddha, didn't seem to be sentient and ignored him. And now, Lin Ling had actually summoned the blue giant and allowed it to land on the island. All of this was too inconceivable, too abnormal. Previously, he thought that killing Lin Ling would be as easy as flipping his hand. But now, it seemed that even his survival was a problem. Boom! Boom! In a short period of time, the entire island was surrounded by countless blue giants. It was like an army of gods attacking a city. The Spirit Kingdom experts were silent. They were so scared that they didn't dare to say a word. On the other hand, Lin Ling stood on the blue giant's shoulder and walked towards the sky. His eyes were locked on Lord Ning and treasure god Nanwufenyu. What an intense battle. Fortunately, I rushed over. Lin Ling said to himself. He then nodded at treasure god Nanwufenyu and looked at Lord Ning. Let go of treasure god Grandpa and I'll let you leave. Let him go. Do you know how long I've been fighting with him? Now that you've let him go, all my years of effort have gone down the drain. Seeing that Lin Ling wasn't afraid of him, Minister Ning said in a low voice. When he first met Lin Ling in Spirit Light City, Lin Ling was like a junior. Although he wasn't afraid of him, there was still a hint of respect. But now, this junior dared to confront him head-on. He wasn't any weaker than him. I've destroyed your island and caused the Spirit Nation's efforts to go down the drain. Why don't you kill me? Hearing this, Lin Ling said plainly. Now, Minister Ning was silent. He also wanted to kill, but the blue giant behind Lin Ling was glaring at him. He was afraid that before he could reach Lin Ling, he would be drowned by the blue giant. Come and kill me. Seeing that Minister Ning was silent, Lin Ling's voice became louder. Looking at him, he was no longer a junior. It was as if he was one of the 9 states' 4 great gods. You should know that if you kill treasure god Grandpa, everyone here will die, including you. This will be a huge loss to Spirit Kingdom. You can bear the consequences. Lin Ling said again. Hearing this, Minister Ning was still silent. But he began to hesitate. In his world, Spirit Kingdom's cause was number 1. It even surpassed his own life and death. Therefore, if these people were to fall, the Spirit Kingdom would definitely suffer a loss. Releasing the tiger back to the mountain, releasing the tiger back to the mountain. Thinking of this, Lord Ning sighed. Back then, he saw that Lin Ling was talented, so he gave Lin Ling the opportunity to join Spirit Kingdom. But who knew that this tiger wasn't someone he could control? After a long sigh, Lord Ning finally nodded and said, Okay, I promise you. Yes. Treasure God Grandpa, come here. Seeing this, Lin Ling said to treasure god Nanwufenyu. The latter held his injured body and immediately flew towards Lin Ling. Throughout the process, Lord Ning didn't stop him. He knew that although Lin Ling was arrogant, he was also a man of principle. Since he agreed to let them go, then he would definitely do it. He meant what he said. When Lin Ling saw that treasure god Nanwufenyu had arrived safely, he finally let out a sigh of relief. Then, he looked at Lord Ning and said, Back then, you helped me once. Today, I'll help you once. From now on, we don't owe each other anything. After all, you should know that on this island, there is someone who I really want to kill. Lin Ling obviously noticed Han Xie. This Han Xie had devoured the evil ghost and his strength had increased greatly. This made Lin Ling feel that he was a great threat that must be eliminated. However, this time, he gave Lord Ning face. After all, back in Spirit Light City, if Lord Ning had wanted to kill him, he, Lin Ling, wouldn't have been able to leave alive. After that, he, Lin Ling, destroyed the awakening of Spirit Kingdom's great god. Lord Ning could have killed him, but the latter didn't. Instead, because of his greed, he missed this opportunity. But no matter what, he, Lin Ling, did owe Lord Ning a favor. Chapter 43-29. Those who walk different paths cannot work together. Lin Ling nodded. Although you are no longer the same as before, I still believe that you will return to the Spirit Nation one day. Let's go. Lord Ning took a deep look at Lin Ling. With a wave of his hand, he led everyone away. Even now, he still did not give up on recruiting Lin Ling. Of course, Lin Ling did not believe it. Perhaps the entire Spirit Nation wanted to kill him. Grandpa Treasure God, are you alright? After Lord Ning and the others left, Lin Ling looked at Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu and asked. I'm fine, just a little injured. Although Minister Ning is despicable, he is still a magnanimous person. He would either kill me or let me go. He won't use any underhanded methods. Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu waved his hand and looked at Lin Ling with gratification. He never thought that the final decision of this trip to the Eight Gods' Heavenly Palace would be Lin Ling. When he first met Lin Ling, he asked Lin Ling for help. It seemed that this was the best choice in his life. These blue giants. Treasure God Nanwu Fengyu stared behind Lin Ling and asked. Let's talk about this as we walk. I think something big has happened in the 9 states. Let's hurry back. Okay. With the help of the blue giant, Lin Ling and the rest arrived at a deserted island after a long time. There was a stone tablet floating there, burning with blue flames. It was exactly the same as the path Lin Ling and the rest had taken when they first entered. However, the current Lin Ling was no longer the same as when he first arrived. He was confident that he could easily open a path to leave. Of course, when he was about to make a move, the blue giants were even more convenient. With a tear of their hands, the stone tablet split open, revealing a passage that was just big enough for one person to enter. Amazing! Lin Ling praised. If he did not do well in the 9 states in the future, he could come to the 8th level and borrow troops from the Dragon King. He would probably be able to sweep the entire 9 states. Of course, he was only thinking about it because he had a feeling that the Ancient Almighty would not easily interfere in the matters of the 9 states. It was as if there was a rule in the unseen world. Or perhaps, the will of the world also had powerful Ancient Almighty that did not make a move. This was why the Dragon King of the East Sea and the other experts did not make a move. Let's go. The group passed through the 8th level one after another. When they appeared again, they were already on the 7th level. After that, the 4 of them did not stop and searched for the exit of the 7th level to leave. Saint Guy. Along the way, Lin Ling saw Saint Guy and the others. Big brother Lin Ling. Xiao Nan and brother An Yo were wandering in the dense forest. After noticing Lin Ling, they were both delighted. You guys have been here for the past year. Lin Ling was very surprised. He landed on the ground with Nanwu Fengyu and the others, and then continued on with Saint Guy and the others. Yes, and the other trial takers did not leave. I saw Juing and the others not long ago. After all, they did not get the 8 gods' notes, so they wanted to see what treasures there are on the 7th level. Little South said. A shield appeared in his hand and he waved it around happily. It looked like. Lin Ling glanced at it and immediately knew that it was a rare innate divine weapon. Of course, compared to the saber Saint Guy got, it was still a little weaker. Lin Ling, why do I feel that you are different? Because my saber can sense it. At this time, Saint Guy looked at Lin Ling and said in shock. Yes, I've become a god. Lin Ling replied casually. His words made Saint Guy and Little South's hearts roar. It had only been a year, and Lin Ling had become a god. One must know that a year ago, Lin Ling was only a 9th level martial god. What had Lin Ling encountered on the 8th level? Alright, little kid, let's go back first. Your Lei Gong is in trouble. Seeing Saint Guy and the others blabbering on, God Emperor Zhang Gang became impatient and interrupted them. When they saw the people behind Lin Ling, Saint Guy and the others did not dare to speak. They could sense that these people were very strong, like gods. Lord Lei Gong is in trouble. Saint Guy became worried when he heard God Emperor Zhang Gang's words. He clearly did not know about the 8 gods' notes, or he would have been in Lei Gong's palace by now. Let's go back now. Lin Ling did not have time to explain. He led the group in the direction of the exit. Little South and the others were familiar with the direction of the exit. It was a bronze gate. This bronze gate was located in a ruin. It was very simple and unadorned. When Lin Ling and the others arrived, they immediately saw a few people preparing to leave. These people were the trial takers. When they saw Lin Ling, fear appeared in the trial takers' eyes. They clearly did not know about Lin Ling's strength on the 8th level, but they knew that even without going to the 8th level, Lin Ling was not someone they could fight against. Lin Ling. Among them, Xiao Er was also present. He was now looking at Lin Ling with a complicated expression. Get lost. However, Lin Ling did not take them seriously at all and shouted angrily. This domineering voice made Xiao Er's face turn ugly. However, he knew that he was no match for Lin Ling, so he endured it. Let's see how you answer to the gods when we go back. Xiao Er suddenly recalled that Lin Ling had killed the trial takers, so he gloated over their misfortune. It's none of your business. Unfortunately, Lin Ling did not even look at him and walked past him. However, after he spoke, a domineering aura pressed down. This aura was like an avalanche, spreading in all directions. It caused the trial takers' legs to tremble, and they fell to the ground with a plop. As for Xiao Er, he was obviously under an even greater pressure. Roar! Xiao Er directly transformed into his dragon form as well. Because only in this way would the pressure he had to endure be slightly reduced. However, just as he had transformed into his dragon form and was baring his fangs and brandishing his claws, Lin Ling, who had already arrived in front of the bronze door, stopped in his tracks and looked back. So noisy, get lost. This time, he finally looked at Xiao Er. However, the aura of a god also directly landed on Xiao Er's body. Rumble. Xiao Er, who was hovering in mid-air, was violently smashed to the ground as if he had been slapped by a large hand. After landing on the ground, he frantically struggled, twisting his body like a small snake. However, he could not break free from the enormous pressure on his body. He was in a very sorry state. Even if you're a dragon, you have to lie down. Lin Ling coldly glanced at Xiao Er and strode through the bronze door. Even if you're a dragon, you have to lie down. Chapter 43:30. While Xiao Er was struggling, a few challengers came from afar. When they saw the scene in front of them, they all asked around and were shocked speechless for a long time. The strength of the 8 new gods was too terrifying. Looking at Lin Ling and the others, they had also left through the 7th level. After a long time, they finally reached the void of the 9 states. Everyone stood in the void and looked into the distance. Inexplicably, there was a complicated feeling in their hearts. The void of the 9 states did not seem as powerful as the 8th level of the 8 gods world. However, it seemed to be the center of the universe, causing everything to revolve around the void of the 9 states. Perhaps it was also the symbol of an era. The realm of the gods was the symbol of the era of the gods. The void of the 9 states was naturally the symbol of the current era. I wonder what happened in the 9 states. Let's go back to Snow City and take a look. Lin Ling stood in the void and looked into the distance. Although the current void of the 9 states was about the same as before, he had a faint feeling that there was probably a huge storm that had quietly erupted here. Lin Ling, you guys go back to Snow City first. We'll go back to Lei Gong's hall to take a look. Let's go back to the Kurishin. Saint Guyi, Little South, and Nyogu all said goodbye to Lin Ling and then ran away. Lin Ling led Emperor God Zhang Gang, Treasure God Nanhua Fengyu, and the giant ghost to Snow City. At this moment, Snow-Blowing City looked very calm. However, this kind of quietness was like a surging undercurrent. A powerful torrent was quietly spreading throughout the entire Snow-Blowing City. Senior sister, have you heard? There's news from Yushin that the Thunder God is the host body of the world's consciousness. Now, all the gods want to attack the Thunder God. Is this true or not? In the City Lord's mansion of Snow City, a figure paced back and forth. His eyes were filled with anxiety. He was Tsung Chiri. He was obviously surprised by the sudden news. I don't know if this news is true or false. Perhaps someone is deliberately spreading rumors. So, before everything is confirmed, it's better not to jump to conclusions. Behind him, the old woman sat with a frown on her face. Obviously, she was also surprised by this news and believed that someone was deliberately targeting Lei Gong and spreading rumors. Yes, it must be fake news. Someone is deliberately targeting Lei Gong. This person is really despicable. Now that the Spirit Nation is eyeing him covetously, this person actually dares to attack his own people. What a vicious person. Tsung Chiri suddenly stopped and said with certainty. But at this moment, a roaring sound suddenly rang out, shocking the entire Snow-Blowing City and causing it to tremble. What happened? The faces of the people of Snow-Blowing City changed greatly. Then, they discovered that a huge thunderball was falling from the sky. It was like a huge black sun, slowly sinking and suppressing the sky above Snow-Blowing City. Rumble. This lightning ball was incomparably terrifying. The moment it was suppressed, the entire city was shaken. Those who were weak were even sent flying by the powerful lightning energy. Pitter-patter. Finally, the black thunder ball fell on the street and wreaked havoc on the entire street. It was buried in the ground, constantly releasing lightning snakes, causing the surrounding area to become a thunder-forbidden zone. What happened? At this time, the governor and the old woman also arrived. They looked at the huge thunderball in shock from afar and realized that the thunderball was suppressing a terrifying power. But who was so arrogant to throw a terrifying thunderball here? Was this intentional? Lightning energy. Sakura, Yu, and the others also appeared. Their faces were very solemn. During this period, they naturally received the news that Lei Gong was one of the hosts of the world will. In this regard, they naturally took it as a joke at first. After all, the 4 gods were against the world will. Now that Lei Gong was the host of the world will, wasn't this a joke? However, as time passed, they began to feel that something was amiss. This was because the revival of the world will's host body had always been without any signs. Even the world will itself did not know about this. Therefore, wind from an empty cave might not be without reason. Lei Gong was Lin Ling's most powerful backer. If something happened to Lei Gong, then some people who hated Lin Ling would definitely attack Lin Ling. Although Lin Ling's strength was enough to dominate the void of the 9 continents, he was still not invincible. There were still many people in the void of the 9 continents who could take his life. The person who came seems to be very arrogant. Young Beast Lord said with his eyes narrowed. Young Beast Lord, do you know who did it? Tsung Chiri and the old woman flew towards young Beast Lord. Sakura and young Beast Lord were rising stars now. Their strength was no longer the same as before. They were stronger than Sangchiri and were one of the 12 martial gods of the 9 continents. I don't know, but the person who came is very strong. The divine power suppressed by that thunderball is very terrifying. Sakura looked at Sangchiri and the others and said. Hearing this, Sangchiri and the others' faces became more serious. On the street, Ancestor Taiyen and the others stood there with a worried look. They had heard about what had happened during this period of time. They didn't expect the 9 continents to be so turbulent. The investiture of the 9 continents had just been quiet for 100 years. Now, there was a storm. Perhaps, this is the Spirit Nation's method. Lin Ling's mother, Mo Nianchen, said with a frown. Hearing this, everyone nodded. They thought that the Spirit Nation was spreading rumors to cause internal strife in the 9 continents void. Nonsense. However, at this moment, a cold snort was heard, interrupting everyone's speculation. Then, a large number of experts came from afar, stepping on clouds. In the blink of an eye, they arrived in the sky above Snow City. The person in the lead was an old man wearing an 8-trigram robe. He looked very unfamiliar, but the people behind him gave off a familiar feeling because they were the Duan lineage martial god and the eternal martial god. Duan lineage martial god, what is the meaning of this? Seeing this, Sakura and the others shouted. It was not difficult to guess that this huge thunderball should be the method of this group of people. However, the last time the 12 martial gods of the 9 continents were re-ranked, the Duan lineage martial god did not dare to be arrogant. When he saw Lin Ling, he did not even dare to fart. Now, he dared to arrogantly step in. Humph. Seeing this, the Duan lineage martial god and the others snorted and ignored Sakura and the others. Instead, they cupped their hands and said to the old man, Ancestor Qing, this is Snow City. Looking at their appearance, they seemed to be in awe of the old man. Looking at the people behind the old man, they were dressed differently from the 9 continents. They were all in the same uniform, but their strength was not weak. It was unknown where this group of experts came from. You're tuning into the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.